Welcome back. We are here for another episode of TVGP's Critical Misses in our Dune read through, watch through. Either way, I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as
Something
always is
like that.
Moonpier,
Aye.
and we're here to talk about Dune Part Two, the movie, 2024's
Mm-hmm.
Dune Part Two. So, at the time of this recording, the film is not yet out. We're ahead of schedule here. So, unlike most other episodes, spoiler warning for everything after right now.
Yes. Also, spoiler warning because the last episode was the second part of the book. So
Right,
there will be things that we will talk about discussed in the book
right,
that you won't know if you've only seen the movies.
correct.
So if you're going into the movie thinking, I want to watch the sequel, and you're thinking, listen to this might be a good start, watch the
Hmm.
movie first.
Yeah,
Please.
or just go read the book and read along with us.
Yes.
This is a good
You can
time.
do that too.
Yeah,
Now that the
um,
episodes are archived, you've got all the time in the world.
that's right. That's right. Um, okay, so uh, before this film comes out, we have a lot of potentialities to talk about, different
Uh-huh.
timelines. Um, there's
So
go ahead.
I can start us off nice and smooth here,
Sure.
and by the way I say nice and smooth, I mean not smooth at all.
Okay.
Because I, thanks to my brand being strong, had a very major spoiler
Hmm.
dropped on me
Fun.
for something that's in this movie I wasn't expecting to be in this movie.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Um, and I was very much like, "Are you serious right now? Like, really, really?" I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm even more excited now because of what it might
Sure.
symbolize and stand for.
Right.
But at the same time,
Because, like, that's the only thing that you might be able to be spoiled for this movie at the moment is sort of what will and won't be in this film. Because a lot of stuff was cut out of that first film. Although,
mhm,
an hour and a half for like the first 2/3 of the book, and then 3 hours for the last third of the book is going to be interesting.
interesting, yes. And
Yeah.
dude, it was like 2 hours and change was the first movie, dude. It was
Mm-hmm.
longer than you think.
Yeah. Well, and the question too is, now that we both have read the first book here, how much is the ending of this movie going to sort of pull stuff forward from other Dune books, or kind of do some foreshadowing of like, oh, mayhaps this happens later. What does
Mhm.
this mean? So I think that's a potential, not concern of mine, just a curiosity of like, how self-contained, how contained is this going to be into just this
Compared
first
to
book?
everything else,
Yeah,
yes. Because yes, yes, to things and discussions.
right.
Do you know the casting for this movie, other
Okay,
than the
so
ones we already know about?
yeah, so from what I understand, most of the cast is going to come back from the first movie. Like
Mhm.
nobody is like, "Oh, Chani, you look so different." She's like, "Hello, it's me, not Zendaya." It's nothing like that. Like
Yeah,
all the
this isn't a roadie situation from the Marvel Cinematic Universe where they just
right.
straight change War Machine.
There's a really great moment in the Netflix Babysitter Club series. The one of the actors changed from season 1 to season 2, and they don't
Okay.
address it except for one line at the beginning of season 2, where the camera's just like panning across the room. She goes, "I've never felt better. I feel like a brand new woman." It's just like, all right, that's pretty good.
That's the way to handle it. That's how
Yep.
the MCU does it. The MCU is like he walks in Iron Man 2. Cody he walks in. Uh, it's not Cody, it's something else. But whatever.
Rhodey, Rhode.
Rhodey,
Yeah.
yes, he walks into that scene where Iron Man is in front of the Senate hearing essentially, and
Mm.
he walks in and Tony Stark stands up, looks at him, and goes, "I didn't expect you to be here." And he turns around and says, "Look, it's me. I'm here. That's it." And then you
Right.
just move on. You
Yep.
don't address it at all.
Yep. People know that happens. Like, you don't need to be like, well, I'm back from the Forbidden Zone and I look different. It doesn't matter. So I know that everybody everybody that's kind of still alive and able to return, still alive in the story, not literally. Um,
Hmm.
I know that the Emperor is Christopher Walken, which is
Yep.
just the perfect role that you could put that dude in. Like,
I wish I could do a walking because I would love to hear somebody do Dune impressions in a
mm-hmm,
like Dune lines in a walking voice.
yeah,
I'm curious, is he gonna walking this up? Like, is he gonna be Christopher Walken or is he
right.
gonna act
I,
kind of thing?
I
I hope he
feel
doesn't do the walking thing, if I'm honest.
I kind of hope he does either one of them. Like either he leans all the way into it and he's just the Christopher Walken character, or he just plays it the straightest you've ever seen him play something. Like I don't want to see him do a middle ground kind of wishy-washy thing. I want to see him commit to one of those two sides.
Is there anyone you hope gets more screen time in this movie?
I would like to see more stuff for Princess Irulan and the Emperor. I'd like to see more like background stuff because we have the Count Fenring stuff that I think is hopefully not a major part of this, but I liked him, especially dealing with the Baron Harkonnen in the second part of the book we read.
Hmm.
I hope that's featured because I think I don't know who plays that character, but I hope they kind of. Oh no, is this someone real good?
Uh, it's someone who I have nothing but respect for because everything I've seen them in, they give 100%, be that drama or cheesy B movies or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everything I've ever
Oh
seen them in,
no, I don't know who
they
that
give
is.
everything to, and they are so good in everything that they do.
Uh, I don't even know who that might be.
It's a very much an up and coming name. It's that you hadn't heard
Okay.
of them before about 2, 3 years ago. This isn't
Okay.
like this isn't Scarlett Johansson coming in
Right,
here and
right.
being
Okay.
Princess Irulan. It is someone who like 2 years ago you were like who, and now you're like oh,
Oh,
her.
him. All right.
Good, great. Let's
Okay.
see how this goes.
Curious. I hope they nail that role, but I think there's an opportunity for there to be more Christopher Walken and Irulan stuff, like sort of exposing some behind the scenes stuff that Fenring is talking about. Like, hey man, he's super pissed, and you mentioned this thing about Arrakis being a prison planet. That was the dumbest. Like I think there's an opportunity for some of that stuff to come to light. I feel like you don't have Christopher Walken in your Dune movie, and he's only there for like 20 minutes.
You could say the same thing about Dave Bautista though. Speaking of
That's
Dave
true.
Bautista,
Yeah, probably won't get too much more screen time, depending on how much they want to show him being left behind.
yes. I will say there is definitely some major changes from the books in here based on the trailer. Now,
Okay,
obviously, trailers can be cut differently. Trailers
sure.
can be amended. We all fell victim to the Hulk in the Infinity War trailer when it was
Hmm.
actually
The
Bruce
cow
and
and
the
Twister.
yes,
We've
well,
all
like
been there. Also, to be really clear, I haven't seen the trailer because we just recorded yesterday
mhm.
the second book episode, so I didn't want to watch the trailer and have any of that stuff. And probably at this point, we're like 2 weeks away from seeing the movie. I'm probably just not going to watch it. I'm just going to go see
Mhm.
the movie. So why not? Why not?
I ate the trailer up for this. I
Oh, for sure.
genuinely did
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, it's trailer because the behind the scenes, one of the reasons this season has been so chaotic to produce is
Hmm.
because this was originally scheduled for last year in the middle of September,
Right.
because that was the original Dune release date.
Hmm.
And now, because of the writer's strike and everything that's going on, they pushed the movie back because they wanted the cast to be able to do promotion for the movie, which they
Hmm.
are. A lot of promotion for the movie. So they released like 3 trailers. Then they stopped for 6 months, and now they've released like another 3 trailers,
Oh, wow.
and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. This is a 30 minutes behind the scenes video on
Oh, goodness.
YouTube of like interviews and footage with the cast and things like that. I haven't seen that, but I've seen every trailer. I'm like, yep, I'm looking forward to this. That's different from the books, and I'm fine with that because I think that's a better ending
Oh, interesting.
for a
Um,
character, we'll say.
sure. So I know Anya Taylor-Joy is in this, who we've seen in like 3 other seasons. Curious to see who she's going to be. I,
Understandable.
I've seen
Who is
production.
also a part of the MCU, technically speaking, by the way.
That's true, and I think we liked her a lot in Split. I think is the most recent thing we've seen her in
Yes,
for this show.
I always forget that that's her because I'm so used to
Hmm.
seeing her with her blonde hair that
Yeah,
anytime she shows up in that, I'm always shocked.
I feel like the most of the time you see her, it's just like, hey, remember Queen's Gambit? And it's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right, that was her with the giant eyes. Very curious to see who she's going to be because there's a production shot of her wearing a very white, very long dress, and I'm like, okay, is she just Princess Irulan? Like, is that?
I'm saying nothing.
I know. I appreciate that. It's just sort of like either that's
Do
a
you know?
really good like red herring, or it's just that she's just
You
Princess
know,
Irulan.
she's also involved with a different franchise I adore, right? You know that, I'm assuming.
Maybe no. Which way? Which franchise?
She just finished filming Furiosa, the Mad Max
Oh, that's
spin-off.
right. I forgot about that. Oh man, that's gonna be so. She's gonna be
So
great in that.
she's spending a lot of time in the desert, is what I'm hearing.
That's true. That's true. I know that Florence Pugh is also in this, also potentially as Princess Irulan? Question mark. Who can say? And Leia Sado is in this. Death Stranding's Leia Sado is
That's
in
where
this.
I know that face from.
Yeah, I'm fragile,
Why do I
but
know
not
this
fragile.
face? And I couldn't
Hmm.
figure it out. Now I know.
Yep, she ate the Cenobites. Yep, Death Stranding. I don't know who the hell she's gonna be. The
Okay,
Hera, maybe.
I will spoil her casting because I
Okay.
think this might actually be genius casting.
Mhm.
She's Lady Fenring.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Oh man. Okay, so now, okay, can you tell me who Lord Fenring is then? Because now I need to know the pairing of the two.
I'm not seeing him in the main cast list.
Oh, interesting.
Uh-huh.
Huh. Secrets.
So, yes, there's a lot of surprise casting in this, we will say.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Uh,
I just saw a listing of like these 2 other people have been hired in undisclosed roles. So
okay, who are the people?
Anya
Tell me.
Taylor-Joy and Tim Blake Nelson.
Okay, Tim Blake Nelson. I'm assuming he has got to be Count Fenring.
I liked Tim Blake Nelson a whole lot in Watchmen TV show.
Okay,
And
he's also in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is on
yes.
my post-it notes critical misses for Western anthology movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's so funny because like every time you look at someone who's like they've been in stuff I love and like 50 popular movies. Oh, they're super famous. Oh, they've got Christopher Walken. Oh, like, and I know they also have Austin Butler, who is infamously
I have not seen him in anything, so I
okay.
don't know. I know what he's in because I looked him up,
Yeah,
but I
he
have
was in
not
the
seen
Elvis
him in anything.
movie
Yes,
as Elvis,
Of-
and then has
from what
sort
I hear,
of
did an incredible job.
yeah, he apparently did really great, and then sort of infamously after that has been having trouble dropping the Elvis accent for a considerable amount of time. And like,
So, do you know what that reminds me of?
hmm,
Charlie Cox.
oh,
Charlie Cox famously
from
played Daredevil in the Marvel TV show and
yeah,
will be playing him in the future too.
hmm
And when he would do auditions after Daredevil had ended,
hmm
he wouldn't be looking at people, he'd be looking off to the side.
right.
He wouldn't look his fellow actors in the eyes
That's
because he
funny,
was so used to playing someone who's blind.
right? I do know Austin Butler is Fade Routha. I have seen
Okay.
some production shots of that. That's
He looks
interesting.
scary.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not a dude I would mess with.
no, not in the
Yeah.
slightest.
Yeah. I think that's all the actors I know of, because like you said, a lot of the stuff that's been around, especially on social media, is like, look at all of our hot actors. They're just standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. Here's a 1 minute long shot of them. It's like, oh, okay, sure. And then like on the other side of it, Josh Brolin's like poems to his other actors have been getting out there. They've been released, but that's on the other side of the spectrum where I'm sort of like, this is like maybe a little bit more intimate than I would want to be
Uh-huh.
released. So,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm very glad to see Babs Alusumanukwan back.
Okay.
He is Jamis. So I'm
Ah,
very
perfect.
glad to see him in the cast list again, which
Great.
means we're going to get future visions of Jamis again, which I
Hmm.
really like the implications of that.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious to see who is going to play Hera, if she's going to be. I feel like she sort of has to be at least a semi-important part, but
I think she gets cut. I think that whole thing
I
gets
could
cut.
understand it. Like, I could see it. I liked the relationship between Hera and Aaliyah near the end of the book, of this kind of like
Yeah, she's so
almost
important to Aaliyah's story, but you could
right.
also just use that to be Jessica and any other Fremen.
I'm very curious to see who's going to play Aaliyah. I hope that doesn't get cut, because that could be.
I
It
mean,
doesn't need
you
to be
need a
in there
kid.
a lot, but could be
Like,
interesting.
who's the kid? Like, what kid
Right.
can pull that off?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but
Like,
I like the idea of shooting the kid mouthing off to the emperor and then just like hee bye, and like
yes.
murdering the Baron Harkonnen and then like fleeing outside of this sandy hole in a ship, just be like bye, haha. Like just like this little elf like just disappearing. um I think that that could be interesting, but that's another one that you could probably write around and cut, but I'd be pretty bummed if that was significantly chopped out of there.
Yeah. Mm.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I have to assume that a pretty significant amount of this movie is going to be the
There's going to be a lot of action.
the
We
like
have to assume that this
the
is the fight.
yeah, like the period from when Gurney blows up the shield wall all the way until the end of the movie. That's
That's
just
like
got
a
to be a ton of action.
90 minutes minimum, I'm
Right.
assuming, is going to be that whole sequence.
You got to see the sandworms like getting ridden all over the place. Like you got to see stuff blowing
We
up. You
still
have
have
to
to
have
have the initiation sequence.
right.
Paul riding his first worm.
I hope that's
And
cool.
you know he's going to take like 45 minutes for that sequence alone because that's an
That's true.
important sequence.
Yeah.
And Denis is a visual director to say the least. So I'm looking forward because, I mean, we talked about it in the movie for the part one of the movie's episode. Like, it is visually astonishing some of the stuff he does in that
Yep.
movie. Some of the camera tricks he plays, like the foreground background playfulness, like
Yep.
just some of the long shots on the desert is incredible.
Right. And I saw someone on Twitter bring up a great point that anytime there's a significant amount of CGI, they're always grounding it with some human actors in the foreground, like them swirling around, hanging out the back of the ornithopter with the big sandworm. The Arakeen on fire, they're standing there on the sand dune, sort of looking down and out over it. And there was a bunch of other shots. I was like, man, that's a really good point about just not being the screen is full of CG and it looks terrible. It's like, no, there's grounding it with something real helps that imagery a ton.
Even when it's full of CG, I still think it's incredible. Like we talked
Mm-hmm.
about the ornithopter coming up in the shot with the harvester in the background and the shift of
Mm-hmm.
focus between the two, like
Yep.
stuff
That's a
like
good point.
that is incredible. Like I don't know, man. Like it's a it's a long movie for what we. I mean, the thing is it's also a long time frame. I've heard
Right.
like it covers like what at least 3 years in the book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, but in the book there's a lot of skipping. There's like as much as I give Tolkien a lot of crap for his obsession with spending 2 chapters describing a hill,
Hmm.
Whereas on the other side of that hill, there is a battle going on that he mentions in a sentence.
Right.
Dune does the exact same thing. They don't
Hmm.
talk about the fight. They don't talk about the war between the Fremen and the Sardaukar. They're like, this blows up. Worms are coming through. The Sardaukar
Right.
are stunned. There is no vivid description of the battles. There is no huge breakdown of the multitudes of people dying. Like that is not
Right.
there at all.
Yeah, there's
So
Paul's stuff going on elsewhere. It's like, yeah, there's a bunch of fighting. Anyways, Paul's talking to the
yeah.
Emperor.
Oh,
Yeah.
I hope I do. I
I'm
I
good.
I hope we get a lot more Stilgar. I think this.
Yeah.
So the thing we need to take into account as well is just like the book. I think the first movie doesn't downplay but lessens Jessica's importance a little bit because
Yeah.
half of the first part of the book is Paul's point of view and the other half is Jessica's point of view. They're the
Hmm.
two main perspectives. In the movie, all we got is really Paul's opinion. A bit here and there, Jessica, but not a whole lot.
And I do
Um,
like how the movie does make Jessica a more formidable fighter. Like by herself, she's more capable than she often seems in the book. Like she's in the book, she has the voice and she can use that. She wields that very well. But I like her having more opportunities to fight in the movie.
yeah, and I'm very curious to see exactly how much are we going to expand on Chani's role? How much are we going to expand on Stilgar's role? Because they are
Right.
two very vital characters. And Chani got very little screen time in the first part for a reason.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Like as her story was starting, the movie was ending. So
yes, I did see a
yeah.
wonderful right-wing meme which was clearly made up, and it was like, "Oh, Chani is the most important character in the second part of the book, and that's
Hmm.
why this movie is going to be ruined." It's like Chani's the most important character in the second part of the book. Like
That's right.
she's
Read the
it's,
book.
it's literally there for a reason.
If
Like
they could read, they'd be real mad about it.
Chani is
Um,
vitally important. Did you just do a
yeah,
King of the Hill meme at me?
it's really an Arthur meme, but yes, also at the same time a King of the Hill. Um,
Okay.
but it's interesting because I hope that there is I hope there's an uh, since Stilgar is so important, especially as Paul rises to be the leader of the Fremen, and Stilgar kind of takes a very small step back. That tension between the two was so interesting and important in the book, and I hope that's kept. But at the same time, the whole water of life
That's
thing,
going to be an interesting sequence.
yeah.
Are they gonna reference the fact they drown a sandworm to
God,
create the water of
God, I
life?
hope it's so cool.
How are they gonna visually represent the motes of existence that Jessica turns
Right.
into during the Reverend Mother thing?
Are they
Like,
gonna dive into the Matrix and see the code? Like, is that what we're
yeah,
gonna do for this stuff? Yeah, I hope they address it because it is an important part of the book. But I could kind of see if they find a totally different way of explaining away the water of life kind of changing thing.
yeah. I think the really funny thing is I think we talked about it in the first movie section. Like, Dune is considered unfilmable for
Hmm.
very good reasons.
Oh yeah.
And I think the ironic part of this is I think this is the unfilmable part. This is the real
Right.
unfilmable part. The rest of it is tough.
Right.
This is the part that
You,
becomes
you look at the
what
like
do you
Bene
do?
Gesserit genetic memory, and you take that shot from Star Wars where Rey is lined up, and there's 30 of Reys, and it's just like, all right, you just put a bunch of old women in that line, and then you're
Oh,
fine.
dude, that finger clicking scene is so good.
It's so cool. That's why I want him to steal it. Like, just here's like 900 Bene Gesserit Reverend Mothers, and it's just like, yeah, all right, that's us. We're all you
Yeah.
now. Good luck.
Do we get a shot of the original Fremen on Belusi Prime? I think it was
It would
getting
be.
chased off like by the
I would be.
Sardaukar because we
I
know what the Sardaukar look like now.
That's true. That's true. I would be keep it down out there, loud car. Um, I I would hope they would at least make hints at it. Like even if you kind of flash a couple of planets and then the Fremen are escaping from one or the other or landing and settling on Arrakis, it's to me it's a thing you can probably address very quickly, but I think it's an interesting facet of the Fremen where it's like Arrakis isn't our home planet. That was a long time ago, many planets ago. So we're making this one work.
I don't know, dude. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I am excited for the soundtrack since the first one was pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, more than
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else is here. It's a 3-hour movie. That's gonna
Bella
be
Tagoos was the name I was thinking
Bella
of.
Tagoos.
They
Okay.
so they are part of the Wandering Senzumi. Senzumi is the religion that they follow,
Mm,
and there is 8 planets they were at before they got to Arrakis. And
jeez.
the Arrakis split is the Fremen version of the same
Right.
peoples.
I can't think of anything else in this movie that I want to 100% see or I want to 100% see go. Mostly, my curiosity at this point is, like we talked about, that's not a ton of pages in the book, but it's chock full of dense stuff. So, how do you translate as much of that stuff as possible to keep a cohesive story together with 50 different moving parts that, like you said, ends up in probably a 90-minute action scene?
Yeah, and like, does this do you go deep dive into the time jumps? Do you do a lot more
Right,
Fremen culture building? Because we got very little of that in the first movie.
right.
A little bits and pieces, but not a lot. But do you do super huge Fremen culture building in the start and maybe don't take the time skip literally and show multiple steps in that
You
time
do like
frame? Like,
a culture montage of just like, I'm learning how to be
yes,
a Fremen.
like him being there, then a year later, then 18 months, then 2 years,
Exactly.
then we get to
Right.
the point where the time skip happens. Like, is that what we end up with just to try and give a bit more world into that? Does this, against all my better judgments, and I'm keeping this in my mind because I don't want to go in too hyped.
Mm-hmm.
Does this become Attack of the Clones, where it's a
Mm,
60-minute story and 90-minute action sequence?
sure.
Like, that is my main concern. I don't want to see this become Attack of the Clones. Did they
Right.
get rid of those horrible CG armor that they had in the
Yeah,
visions
are
in
we
the
going to take a
first one?
second pass on those? Like,
Like, do we just forget them in their regular old still suits, which is what they should
right,
be fighting in?
right. I think my only final question is to loop this back into a movie we watched the beginning of this year. Do we have a mic drop of a final line in this movie, like the final line in Barbie, where Jessica delivers the final line in the book? And is that the like, bam, here's the line, and then credits?
So I hope not, because I think that is a terrible. Um, I think it's a terrible final line in the book
I,
because
I
it's
think people would be people would be coming out of the movie just being like, what?
it's the thing that we have talked about where the book does not handle women well, and literally
Yeah,
the final line of the book is defining women as their roles as a mother or a wife. Like that
right.
is,
And we
I
talked about it
think
in the
that
last episode. They're either slaves or wives, and it's like,
yes.
yeah,
I think honestly, I think you end with Arrakis was made to train the faithful. I think that needs to
mm,
be the final line of the
right.
movie because that's a
As
hell of a line.
yeah, because like as Paul is communicating, like your reliance on spice is at my whim, and I'm
Hmm.
going to follow through with the Fremen dream of transforming Arrakis into this garden world. So, but there's always got to be a little bit of desert to train the faithful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I think that is a good exit,
you
a
might
good exit line.
right, and maybe like finishing with a cool shot of the southern part of the planet
No,
sort of
I think
transforming.
I think visions of the future are the end of this movie.
That's
I
true.
think you get full on. This is the potentiality
Right.
of. Do we get a
Well,
Dune 3 greenlit 4 days after this one
right.
was
Well,
released kind of situation?
I think my only other ending is just a neon flashing on the screen saying, Paul is the villain. Brant, Brant, Brant. Like, the klaxon's going. He's, don't be like Paul. Burn, burn.
Uh-huh.
That's right. Fascism is bad. Whoop, whoop,
Yes.
whoop.
I mean, that's the thing is I don't want it to do it because you don't know if it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But based on how much this has been pumped up and how much everyone in my circles seem to be excited about this movie, like
Yeah.
they seem to have seen the first one, respected the first one, they're really interested in this one. I am very curious if he ends this with very much like the first part ended with "This is only the beginning." Like that's a
Yeah.
good little teaser line.
Yep.
I think this ends with, like I said, I think he claims the throne.
Mm-hmm.
I think he makes that speech that you're talking about, like the one. I think they switch things around a little bit, where like the Chani Jessica moment that comes first, and he's like, "Look,
Yeah.
don't you worry. This is for a throne. Me and you work something completely different. You are the person I care about."
Right.
And I think he does the 180 turn around, address the throng of people in front of him. It's like, yeah, this is what I have promised the Fremen. This is what I have done. This is what I will do. And after all, Arrakis was made to train the faithful. God
Right.
made Arrakis to train the faithful.
Right.
And then I think he gets a future vision, and the future vision is the potentiality of potentially a Dune 3 movie.
Yeah. And like kind of winking and nodding about some stuff from the next book of just sort of like,
And
man.
like you show the hordes, show the Fremen destroying planets, show them doing what they do in the books, because
Right.
we talked about it last episode. 61 billion people is a lot of people.
Right. Right. Yeah. I can't think of anything else.
I think that ending, if you flash forward and show the Fremen and everything else as well,
Mhm.
that ending gives you what you want. It shows Paul as the villain as he goes and dominates
He's
all
leading
of these
this
other
like
planets.
swarm of locusts across the universe. That's true. And that's I'm curious to see how they deal with Paul at the end of the book, like hardening his heart and kind of locking it down and saying, I have these things to do. It's not as bad as it could be. You know, I've seen the branches, but it's still going to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a little disappointed because Barry Keogh was supposed to be cast in this movie.
Okay.
Who is a young up and coming actor who seems to be making a very good name for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Joker in the Batman
Okay.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
In the final scene, like for 2 seconds, he's in that.
Mm-hmm.
He's also in Eternals as Druig.
Oh, okay.
He steals the show in that. I'm not gonna lie. He 100%. He's barely in it, and he steals the show. But he seems to be a very talented up and coming actor, and he was supposed to be in this, but I don't think they got him. I think they end up getting somebody else.
It's still, we talked about this in the first movie, but it's really great to see people be like, it continues from the first movie of like, oh, this dude's shooting a Dune movie. I don't need to see anything. I'm just signed up. Whatever you want to pay me, great. Just I'll meet you in the desert. No big deal. And then after the success of the first movie, more people are tripping over each other. It's like, I want to be in Dune. I want to be in Dune too. Let me in. Let me open the doors.
It's the Helen Mirren Fast and Furious thing.
Right.
She's just like, I'd love to be in one of those. And
I love your stupid movies. Let me in.
Says that to Vin Diesel at a red carpet event, and then she's in the next movie. You know,
Right.
It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, and my favorite thing is this movie has done this wonderful thing of like what professional wrestling is supposed to do, where the older people elevate the younger people before the older people step away.
Right.
And look at the cast in the first movie. You've got legends of movie making in there. Like Rebecca Ferguson, don't get me wrong, she's not old, but she's older. You've got Skarsgård. You've got Batista, who's been around the block a few times. Although something tells me that Batista would do a film with Denny for a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. I got to hang out with him again. All right, let's shoot a movie.
Like you got all of these people, and then you got young up and comers in their own rights, in
Hmm.
Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, and all of the younger cast. Like
Yeah.
it feels like they're all elevating and pushing each other so much further than they would if they were just in it by themselves.
Right. Man, I'm excited to see this movie. We unfortunately have a couple of weeks here before
Yeah.
the movie shows up in theaters, but I'm pretty pumped.
So, yeah, I am very excited. I already have my tickets booked. I have my seats booked. I have my food booked. I'm not getting that popcorn bucket. No, thank you,
No,
sir.
no thanks. Google it or don't. I don't know. It depends on what you want to see today. All right. On that
Actually,
note, yeah, yes, go ahead.
just before we sign off,
Hmm.
do we maybe want to address the thing that you sent me via text message about Dune 1? Um, about how there was like 4 hours of footage,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Denia's like, no, no,
Yeah,
you don't
someone
get to
asked
see
him
that.
about like, "Hey man, for like a director's cut or like a special edition Blu-ray, are you gonna release all the deleted footage? You know, you said you shot a whole ton of stuff and kind of cut it." He was like, "Oh yeah, when I remove it from the movie, I just throw it out. Like I just delete it, so it doesn't
Yeah, it's
really
gone.
exist anymore." And I was like, "You monster, you fool!"
Uh-huh.
Like it's one of those just like I get it. Like you deleted it for he is was essentially saying like I removed it from the movie for a reason. So reintroducing it to the movie as like a 4 hour supercut kind of defeats the purpose, and then remove like just putting it in a menu on the Blu-ray kind of takes it out of context, which doesn't make him feel good about it either. So he just it's
Yep.
essentially like just dragging it into the recycle bin of like, oh, here we go. All right, here's 20 more minutes. Here's 10 minutes, and it's just like that. I get it and I respect it. That sucks.
Yep.
Yeah. So expect that here for this one too, I'm sure.
Oh, I want to know how much footage was shot because this is almost 3 hours, just under.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, how much actual footage did you shoot for
yep,
this thing? Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, in a couple weeks, let's watch the film.
yep.
We're back. Hello. Welcome back
Uh-huh.
to what is
Mm.
surely going to be a 5-star runtime. Grab a drink, grab some snacks, grab your popcorn bucket. Let's settle in. Get a blanket. Let's get comfy
Oh
here.
boy.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, we have both seen Dune Part Two, and
Mm-hmm.
we're here to try and remember as much of it as we can.
It's a long movie.
Yeah, man, like 3 hours. They really weren't joking, man.
But
Goodness.
so I will say that this also very much felt like Avengers Endgame to me, where it was like that was like a 3.5 hour movie. I didn't feel it at all. And
Yeah,
this was very much the same. Where
yeah,
it was just like, oh, 3 hours is over already? Okay. I
right.
know what I know what's coming next. We've got to be close to the end soon.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta give him a lot of credit. Like, just like the first movie, there's a considerable amount of stuff that's just had to be
Uh-huh.
trimmed. But yeah, this movie booked a lot for most of it. Um,
Uh-huh.
is there anyone before we need to get into the kind of our what we remember of the plot? Sort of, I feel like we should sort of give a shout out to some people here in the cast. Um, I
I
think
I I really should open the IMDb page for this because I already forgot what his name is.
uh,
Austin
Austin Butler.
Butler?
That was the one I was going to give a shout out for Fade Routha. Just like the
Yeah.
breakout performance here.
So a character who is arguably underdeveloped in the books.
Hmm.
He's in the first part for like a scene. He's in the second part for like 3 scenes.
Hmm.
Um, I like. There's a lot of changes from the books here, which we'll get to, I'm
Hmm.
sure.
Yep.
I like the fact that they lean into him being basically a sociopath.
Yeah.
Um, and you said to me when we were talking about this movie that famously, after he did the Elvis movie, he had a
Yes.
very tough time dropping the Elvis accent.
Hmm.
I think we have found our new generational master of voices.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, I'm on set now, and I sound exactly like Stellan Skarsgård. Here we
Like
go.
yeah, like we kind of we burned pod in the Discord channel because of this, but
Hmm.
like his enunciation and pronunciation is so right next to Skarsgård's
Yeah,
that it's just like this is their accent. This is not
yeah,
a character. This is the accent of all of those people because of the way these two characters pronounce and inflect certain
yeah.
words.
It's uncanny. Like
It's so good.
I wasn't really expecting much out of, like you just talked about. Fade Rautha in the book is just kind of not really there for most of it, and then there's a fight at the end, and yay, Paul wins. Um, but I really like how much more Fade Rautha is in this one, and how like genuinely unsettling he is, just as like a weird,
Yep.
gross, like like you said, psychopath. Like he's just, and it's made even more unsettling by the like the baldness and the black teeth and the like general Harkonnenness. Like,
Yes. And the fact that
ah,
he's also very smart, and you see him be very
mm-hmm,
smart,
yep,
um, which is really a nice touch as well, because he is pointed in that direction in the novel too.
mm-hmm,
Um, and like you said, like the the burning of CH Tabor,
mm-hmm,
um, or not CH Tabor, but one of the hideouts where he finds like that the Fremen woman who killed like 9 people and
yep.
then gets captured.
I don't remember
Like
what her
that
name is.
sequence is I don't know either, but
Yeah,
like he's like, oh, I already know everything I need to know. Like there's nothing
yep.
you can tell me that's gonna help.
This is just for me.
Now the
Like,
pleasure
that's
begins.
right.
The
Like,
fact that he phrases it as pleasure is
yep.
just
Oh, so
chef's
unsettling.
kiss.
Oh man, he's great. I wish
Uh-huh.
we got more Batista. I feel like we got
Yep,
a little bit, but I kind of wish
I
that,
wanted more too.
yeah, like he's so good, and you could kind of see a little bit of him in this movie. Like, I think the misconception about Batista as an actor is that he's just this big dude that screams a lot, but with how much they cut out of the Beast Reborn in this movie, he's just kind of a big dude that screamed a lot for most of this movie, and I think that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think he got enough.
Yeah. Christopher Walken is the Emperor. Chef's kiss.
He
2 thumbs up.
he didn't walking it up either. Like he
No,
didn't
there was
go full on.
one Walker
He didn't go
line.
full walking, but he did a walking bit.
Yeah. It's like, I don't even remember that. One more deep. Like
Yes,
there was one
I
line
think
where
it
it's just
was the
like,
Muad'Dib pronunciation.
yeah, it's just like, yeah, you can't get away with it. Leia Sado as Lady Fenring, I thought was pretty good.
Good, underused.
Yeah, she could have
Well,
been.
we so interestingly enough, underused but overused compared to the book.
Yeah,
Overused,
because she wasn't
but
the main
underused in this role.
Fenring in the book. She was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go over here and sleep with this creepy Fade Rautha.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That sequence is great, by the by.
Yep.
Um,
I'm trying to think of anybody else that was new in here that was of note
I
as
mean,
well.
do we want to talk about Stilgar in this moment, considering how little we got him in the first movie,
Yeah.
and Chani, or do we want to use that as a? We'll get to that when we see when we talk about the changes from the books.
I
Or do we want to jump to Anna Taylor-Joy by the by?
yeah, like yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy showing up in this movie. Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan is
There we go.
also really great. Like he just kind of Denis just kind of got everybody. We were talking about this
Uh-huh.
with the first movie of just like, he's shooting a movie. Oh, it's Dune. Okay, cool. Tell me where to show up. Like, whatever. I don't need to read anything. I'm good. I'm ready. Let's
Yep.
go. And you can really see that in this movie of just like, oh, they're in this. Oh, yep, they're here. Oh, hey, they're showing up too. All right, let's go. Um,
Uh-huh.
The other thing I'm struggling with this movie is like where to start. uh,
Yeah, I mean it's tough.
I
Uh,
I have a lot of notes that I wrote here.
okay, I didn't write any notes, so
Okay,
let's follow your notes
I
because I didn't have a pen with a flashlight built in, so I couldn't write
that's
notes.
right. I One of the things that I thought was really interesting at the beginning was them showing the movie showing the Fremen extracting the water from Jamis. Um, and
Oh, and from the Harkonnens or the Sardaukar actually as well.
yes, and I love that the standout shot from this movie has been the Sardaukar floating up that rock
Off the
face,
cliff.
and just like silently walking. And so many people on Twitter just being like, "I bet that feels amazing." It's like, you know what? You're right. I bet
I
that
bet it
does feel
does.
amazing. um,
Uh-huh.
that
Maybe not
oh,
so much about follows, but
no,
I
but
bet that part was great.
yeah. Um, I One thing that I'm not sure I'm happy with them removing is the friend of Jamis scene. Um, I they replace it with other Fremen stuff, but
Yeah. I
I,
really should. Okay.
yeah,
So we might as well get this out of the way now.
yeah,
I adore Dune. Dune has been with me for decades. I'm so old. Um, and I think you might agree with me when I say this.
mm,
Dune Part One, the movie, is a relatively accurate, as much as it can be based on what you can do, trying to squeeze in, like for like, almost exact book
yeah, because
transition.
like we talked about in the episode for that, they cut out a lot, but the stuff that was left is largely the same, if not very similar to what was there in the
Mhm.
book.
Yeah, I think this movie takes a step to the left.
In almost every regard.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot. I think some of the choices are interesting.
Hmm.
I genuinely do think some of the choices are interesting. Um, I wish it would have stuck a little bit closer to the book, but not because I'm one of these people who are like, "Oh, it's not mine. I didn't
Oh,
do
I'm a
the book."
Dune purist. Not in my movie. Not anything about that.
Well, that's the thing is, I am 100% a Doom purist. I
Hmm.
100% adore this franchise and everything that it is in,
Hmm.
is in it. Um, also, as I've said before to other people who are like, not my Ghostbusters because they're a bunch of women. Shut
Oh
up.
yeah.
Um, but also, number two, guess what I still have?
Hmm.
The books. I can
Ta-da.
still go read the books.
Right.
I can still go do that. So I'm probably going to say a lot of things about this movie that might come off as critical.
Sure.
I'm not being critical. I'm saying what I would prefer to take place.
Hmm. Hmm.
I still think this movie is solid. I still think this movie is really good and like
Hmm.
stands up on its own for the way it tells that story. I think it does a good job.
And we have to give
And
it the impossible credit of being a Dune film that released. Like the
mhm.
unfilmable thing has been filmed and released to pretty universal praise.
And as far as I can tell, super profitable.
Yes, even better. And usually I don't
Um,
say that, but I'd like them to make more. So I'm
yes.
glad it made
So
money.
that is where I think. So this is where I think the changes made in this movie are all changes that are made towards a specific goal. I think
Mm,
that specific goal is to make people realize by the end of the movie that Paul is a villain. He is not a
right.
hero.
Don't cheer for this guy. Put your hands down.
I think all of those changes, those little tweaks and stuff, I think they're all made to lead you in that direction. Because I
Hmm.
think that Denny did not want to repeat Frank Herbert's mistakes
Right.
and leave a question mark at the end of that.
Right.
because that's why Dune Messiah comes out so quickly after Dune, and that's why it's like 80 pages long, essentially,
Right, because Herbert
is
gets to be
because,
like, actually, sit down for a second.
yes, he actually is the entire audience who thought that
Right,
Paul was the hero.
right.
Um, and that's why I think a lot of the changes in this movie version actually lead smoothly into that potentiality. So
Mm-hmm.
there is the possibility to do a Dune Messiah movie.
Mm-hmm.
But if there isn't, if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't get greenlit and people don't sign up again, guess what? The movie ends with the lesson of Dune Messiah. Paul is
Ah,
a villain.
right, right. And
Like
I,
I think that's where the changes all slowly lead to. It's like
right,
the slow transition from X to Y. And instead of having to do like a corrective third movie where you're like, no, Luke was the Sith the whole time. Like, no,
right,
no, no. Here's where we show where he's actually the bad guy.
right. And it's interesting to see them do that while still at the same time keeping and I think reinforcing the message that the Bene Gesserit are also the villains, and their kind of long game is genuinely bad, and then the
Well, eugenics
manip.
at Bad Boston? I never
I'm
would have
here to
thought.
tell you what a surprising. But I like that it's kind of changed, and there's more of a light shown on the manipulation of religion and
Uh-huh.
prophecies as a tool in this. I feel like that was
It
impressed upon
literally
more than the
shines.
book.
Yeah, and it 100% was because the book is 1,000%. Most of it is a white savior narrative,
Right,
which this film is literally calling it out as being a white savior narrative.
right. Chani, I wrote down a quote here. Chani says, "You want to control people? Tell them a Messiah will come. They'll wait for centuries."
Uh-huh.
Like
Great
very
line.
much. Yeah, this a movie full of real good lines, even if some of them weren't straight from the book. Um,
Yes, but let's before we get off on the tangent.
yeah,
Friend of Jamis. It sucks that that scene was not in here.
yeah, because I like that they replaced. It's tough
Oh,
because
okay.
God,
When the first movie came out, I was talking to Banffcast alumnus
mm-hmm.
Chum. He's my chum, Chuck, my
that's,
chum.
that's right.
Um, about the movie, and like I did hey, you got any questions? Ask me. I can
Yeah,
probably answer them. And he asked specifically about the friend of Jamis from the first movie,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, it means a lot more than you think it means, but I don't think it's going to make sense until you see the second movie.
Right.
Spoiler alert, it still doesn't make sense
Yeah,
because
and
they cut that scene out the movie.
yeah, and like so to me, the friend of Jameson is his first steps into being a part of the Fremen, and I think they replaced that in this movie with a number of additional scenes of the Fremen both messing with him and worshiping him at the same time, and having that kind of dual tension, and him earning his keep in the Fremen, sort of against all odds. So I think they managed to get there, but it feels like Jamis's only part in this movie is just like slurp the water out of him, and then here's this giant,
Mhm.
incredibly cool looking underwater pool. Let's keep moving. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
it's a bummer.
and it also does this whole the movie does this thing where like maybe it's Jessica's presumption of it, but when they pour the Jamis's water into that pool,
Mm-hmm.
Stilgar is explaining everything to her. Like, we wouldn't touch this even if we were dying of dehydration. None of us
Right.
would touch this pool. And she says the line, "So many souls." Did not like that line because I don't think it. I think you're also missing the wind catchers, the dew collectors, all of this
Yeah.
other communal water that goes in there.
Right.
Whereas it that being a line in there makes her think, and it's supposed to make us think, how many people are in this thing?
Exactly. Right.
when it's actually no, this is a communal thing. This is the thing that they dedicate their life to, is getting every drop
Right.
that they can, and
It's
it goes
it's
in here.
it's the full breadth of their technology from birth to death. They're capturing every piece of moisture that they can, and it just ends with this last piece of tech. But like all of it
Hmm.
fills this pool and fills all of these pools sort of across the entire planet. Um, and I am it's interesting to see that Chani also recognizes that the Bene Gesserit wrote the prophecies. So she's like, "Yeah, you're worshiping this dude, but like, for who? Like, who told
Yeah.
you? Who wrote these things? It wasn't us. It wasn't the Fremen. It wasn't us from anywhere we've been. Like, who do you think did this? It's that lady." And Jessica's like, "Wait,
Hmm.
me? That's you're crazy. That's not me. What? Who? Couldn't possibly be." I
Nope.
thought that was interesting because Chani in this movie
She's very
is
much the audience surrogate here in this
and
movie, I
and
think.
I think she's more clever than she was in the books. And I think that works for
Hmm.
Chani's character a lot more, where it's sort of like she it feels a lot more like a partner and a teammate to Paul, as opposed to
I
just
believe her.
being the strongest Fremen. You know, like
Yes.
it feels like a better role. And Zendaya kills it in this too. Zendaya kills it in everything she's in, but like she just
Hmm.
and like the thing I love so much about Zendaya in this film is just that look, that like really
She's a good
hard
face
look.
actor. She's a
Yeah, like
very good face actor.
that specific look she gives in this movie is always like, oh man, somebody messed up. Johnny's coming for you. Oh boy.
Hmm.
Um,
So, on the
yeah,
subject of Chani, like I like, there are things about her character that I genuinely do like in the movie. I like you said, I think they lean or expose the religion thing very interestingly, where they're showing the two sides of a religious debate,
hmm
um, which is less covered in the book. Like, I can't remember if it's. I can't remember if it is in the first book where Paul looks at Stilgar and realizes he's a tool. He's a believer now. He's not Stilgar the naive. He's Stilgar the
right,
believer.
exactly,
Um, and that kind of happens with Chani as well. The only part of Chani being really clever in the books that he really shows is her killing somebody who's coming to challenge Paul. Because, like, yo,
right,
dude, if they find out that I killed them, then less people will come a knocking, and less people come a
right,
knocking.
right,
Um, I I'm torn because I think that's really good, but I think in this process of, like I said, the left step to point more towards Doom Messiah, to point more towards Paul as a villain, you lose the thing that I love Chani for in the books is she humanizes Paul. She's
right,
the one who makes you realize, like, yes, he's Muad'Dib, and yes, he's X, Y, and Z, but she talks about the Paul that she knows. She
or she
talks about
grounds
Usul.
him.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
she's the one who's like, I know you based on quiet nights in the desert where we stay up
right,
talking and everything else like that. Whereas you don't really get that in the movie. You don't get her being the part of him that is 100% Fremen and also
hmm
100% keeping him connected to reality kind of
right,
thing. Like
right,
she's his anchor point. Like
right,
there's a reason she's the one who wakes him up from the water of life.
hmm yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of the water of life, I do number one. I like how the water of life looks. I think that's super cool. It's like blue raspberry water of life. Looks really great. Um,
Hmm.
I'm glad they didn't do the whole water of life purification orgy rave thing. I think they distilled that down. Sorry, no pun
Hmm.
intended. Um, they like distilled that down into the most important
A
parts.
more private thing.
Yeah, which I thought was an interesting way to approach it, as opposed to like, here are all of the Fremen and the CH to like witness this happening, and Chani's like really forcing it on Jessica. It's really this handing of the mantle from the other Reverend Mother to Jessica, saying like, this is just a step in this process to get you to, I'm not going to make the trip. You got to
Yeah.
do this, man. You're the only one to do it. And so there's some shots.
We need to talk about Aaliyah. Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
talk
because
about
there's
Aaliyah
some
first and
shots
foremost.
early in the movie of just a fetus, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, right, yeah, she's pregnant. Right. And then we do get the moment of like, you've taken the water of life and I'm dying. Wait, you just really messed up, Jessica. You should have told me you were pregnant.
Mhm.
Bleh, I'm dead.
I do like the fact that they never reveal that she's pregnant to the Fremen. The only
Right,
time you see it is when she gets very clearly gets morning sickness right after this fight at the start. I
right.
still goes like, no, don't let it out. Don't let it out. And when she throws up, he's like, oh.
That's a really good scene of just like, nope, keep it in. Like, you gotta, and I
She
like Rebecca
tries.
Ferguson
She tries.
fighting it. Like, just like, nope, I'm gonna keep it. And his frustration was just like, man, these off-worlders, come on, man. Lost a bunch of
Mhm.
water, you big jump jerks. This is the Aaliyah change here is something that I both like and don't equally.
Okay.
Because
Elaborate.
I think I like Aaliyah in the books a lot at the very end of the book where she's like
When
messing with
she's
the
like
Emperor.
2, 3 years old.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But without the time skip, which we'll get to at some point, the timeline is hard for Aaliyah. So
Mhm.
getting all of those like clockwork pieces to work correctly was probably difficult. So I appreciate that they needed to make a change. I'm not sure if a telepathic fetus is maybe the way that I would have gone. Like, I get it. It's just a little bit odd. It's not bad.
It
It's
is a
just
little odd.
odd.
It is a little odd. I'm relatively okay with it because I think it does that whole thing that's described in the book of the two spirit particles like meeting up and like connecting.
That's
And
a good point. Yeah.
like you kind of have to think that, okay, if that was where it was like at the transition point between all three of them all like connecting with each other,
Mm-hmm.
they're still literally physically connected. So their spirits are probably basically still touching each other. If you're going to do that mote awareness kind of thing,
Right.
it would make sense. Like Jessica even says during that process in the book, they're talking about the mote awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and the Reverend Mother is talking to Jessica, and they're talking to each other, or quote unquote talking, however you want to do it. But when the third mote appears and it is revealed that she's pregnant, they literally call out, it's like words don't work because the third mote doesn't know language. So
Mm.
Jessica uses emotion and pours emotion into that thing rather than
Right.
language, and that seems to work. So I think it would kind of make sense that like they have this connection. And when she's like 2 as well, like when they're having the talk with Jamis's wife, can't remember her name now off the
Yeah,
top of
I
my
don't
head.
remember.
When they're having that conversation where they're trying to make her understand what exactly Aaliyah is, they're like, the only time they really have that connection anymore is when they're in physical contact with each other, which, spoiler alert, a fetus is in physical contact with a mother, so that would make perfect sense.
Right.
So it kind of would make sense that, especially after going through the transition and
Mm-hmm.
becoming a Reverend Mother, then she would start to understand language and things like that. So
Right.
it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Execution wise, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it's hilarious when Rebecca Ferguson just randomly starts saying something that the fetus is saying.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a weird choice, but okay.
It's just a tough. It's a tough thing to have to write, especially because so many of the changes in this movie hinge around the dropping of the time skip. So like that she can't have this kid and have her be 2 or 3 because there's just no time to do it, because there is no time skip, which I think works largely for me for this book, sort of like the lack of time skip overall, because I think they do an interesting job filling that lack of time skip with a bunch of scenes of Chani and Paul like fighting one of those Harkonnen harvesters. Like, that's an incredibly cool scene.
The harvester scene is incredible.
It's and it's nice to see the two of them,
how they would fight.
Yeah, like the fighting is so different, and I think you see you get some good examples in the book of like, no, Paul is one of the best fighters that you can encounter, and so is Chani from sort of the Fremen side, but you don't really see it as well as you see it, especially in that scene in the movie, of just like, no, they're good for real. Like, they are incredibly skilled fighters, and we see so many scenes of like, half of the Fremen don't want anything to do with Paul because he's the Lisan Al Gaib. Like, they're
because they don't
they don't believe.
Yeah, they're not believers, not like those fundamentalists in the South.
It's really good, but like,
could you not tell from his accent? He's from the South.
Yeah, and Paul's just like, what? what are you talking about, man? But I like there's that kind of, the movie starts with that division where it's like, here's the believers of this prophecy, here's everybody that's like, yeah, but who made the prophecy? Like, why am I supposed to be? He's just a dude.
The kids, basically. The kids
pretty much,
don't
yeah.
believe.
It's like, why am I supposed to be worshiping this other kid? Like, Paul is like my age. Like, look at him. He doesn't even know how to like walk on the sand. Like, what am I supposed to follow this little mouse for? What are you, stupid?
And they laugh at him when he requests to be called Muad'Dib as well, which is a nice little moment too.
Yeah, them kind of messing with him, where it's like, that's what you want to... The mouse? Really? Okay, sure. You get to pick it, I guess. I do like the couple of walking the sands scenes we get, kind of teaching him how to live with and in the desert.
Yeah. I like the fact
that...
I find it funny that like Chani's friend, I wish I could remember her name. Let me see if I can find her.
Yeah, I don't remember. She's it's nice to see that somebody who
I think it's Shisakali, who is she's the counterpoint to Chani, where they're both on the same non-believing side, and they're just like the best of friends, constantly making fun of each other.
Yep.
Like, you definitely get that shared history vibe there, which I really like. And like when Stilgar sends Paul out to do the crossing to prove that he can be a Fremen, and Stilgar's like, no, the big like centipedes, you don't have to worry about those, but the small ones, they're the ones you have to be really careful about. Right. And he's holding his hands shoulder width apart, like the small ones.
Right.
Watch out for trapdoor spiders and this and that. And it's like, okay. And it's worm country too, by the way.
Right. And like,
but like, like that whole sequence, and like that's where Chani and her friend are completely winding each other up about the whole thing. Dude, we don't believe, let's make fun of the old man. Right. And then it cuts to Paul doing the journey, and there's Chani sitting on a dune top being like, yo, you walk like crap, dude.
That's right. And like,
and the fact that Paul says I'm sorry, but in the historical documentaries that I watched, it very clearly shows, well, maybe I should shut up now because I'm literally telling a Fremen about their own culture. It's such a block me, hate me, whatever, I don't care. It's such a white guy on the internet thing.
Right, like mansplaining like, the doctor on the internet about like, oh, well,
about
little lady, if you've ever done this, it's like, oh, I'm the lead, brain surgeon at Johns Hopkins. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, okay. But like, I like in this all of that Fremen stuff, especially them messing with them, because it makes the Fremen feel more alive than they did in the books. Like in the books, they always seem
Yes.
kind of at arm's length and kind of always a little
Clinical.
bit
It
unknowable.
felt. It felt clinical,
Yeah,
like an or not ornithologist, or not an ornithopter either, an anthropologist. They
yes,
felt like an anthropologist's view
right,
of their society,
right,
whereas now it feels like they've got heart. It feels like they've got soul. Like you can
right.
see the society forming kind of
Hmm.
thing.
As was written.
Uh-huh. As was written.
Um,
Good heavens, no, not that big. We'll get there. We'll get there.
that's right. That's
Um,
right.
it's a great
Um,
line, by the way.
yeah. I'm
We
trying
might
to
as
think.
well let's talk about Jessica.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the character done the most disservice by the movie? Question mark.
Missing more in the movie than I was expecting, I think.
And also portrayed as the real villain of the story,
Yeah, which is
which I wasn't a huge fan of. And
it's
this
certainly
also
not how what I was
goes back.
expecting.
This also goes back to what we were talking about with Dune Part One. They never emphasized the fact that the reason she had a son is because she loved Leto. It wasn't because
Right,
she wanted the Kwisatz Haderach. It's because she loved Leto and Leto wanted a son.
right.
That's literally why she did it. She
It
didn't
wasn't
do it
as
out of ego.
right. She wasn't like messing up the Bene Gesserit's millennium-long plans by being selfish, like the Reverend Mother called her. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
She did it for love. And Jessica is a villain. She's not the villain. I think she's
right.
a villain. But I think the movie Part Two does her a disservice because it really puts her in a negative light. Every scene she's in, it feels like and she does it in the books a little bit too, but she's twisting and manipulating everything around her
Or she's like
at
always
every
scheming and
moment.
twisting her
Yeah,
mustache.
yeah, and you never really see even the scenes with her and Paul, like where before she heads south and he stays north. She's having a conversation with him with the interruptions from Aaliyah, which is just whatever.
Hmm.
What by that point in the movie, she has been painted as the villain so much that it's like, is she saying that, or is the fetus saying that? Is she just
Mm,
lying to say what she wants to say to him about the situation?
right.
And like even when Chani gets news from the south, she's like, "Yeah, there's someone down there whispering about the Lisan Al Gaib, but gee, I wonder who that might be."
Right. Who's the lady that's always scheming down there? I do like her like tattoo makeup
The
in
face
this
tattoo,
movie.
yeah.
I thought that was super cool. I think that, and
Uh-huh.
just like the last movie, incredible costuming in this whole movie
Yes.
through everybody. Like the practical stuff for the Fremen with the still suits, and her stuff that's just this overly opulent stuff that I think is done really well.
I also credit to the costuming department. Everyone is filthy, and
Yes.
they should be.
Yep.
Everyone, there isn't a clean face, and get rid of that Skyrim mod's clean faces. Everyone is a mess in this
Yeah,
movie.
everybody's just dusty and dirty and a little muddy. Like, yeah, it's done really well. Um, the next note I have here is about the Paul's first sandworm riding scene. Um,
Yeah, yeah, not the one. Yeah, him calling the sandworm, I'm
right.
assuming, is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So his first solo experimentation.
Yeah. His solo one. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
This sequence is incredible. Like it
It's
really,
really good.
like it really gives you the sense. And again, not that big. Oh no, it's still a great line.
It's very good.
But it gives you the sense of, especially like, I love how it's shot. How it's just like, I knew someone who got hit by a car.
Mhm.
He survived. He's fine. Mostly. He's just weird like the rest of us.
Right.
And he described being hit by a car. It was a pretty bad accident. He described when he got hit by a car. He was very young, so he bounced back from it, relatively speaking, no pun intended.
Right.
But he said all he felt was an impact and then he saw sky ground, sky ground, sky ground, sky ground,
Mm,
blackness. Like that's all he can remember from the thing of being hit by a car was there's the sky, there's the ground, there's the sky, there's the ground.
right.
And this whole sequence, I love the fact that he's barely got it under control, and
Yep.
it's like right at that middle point where it's still the sand is coming up like a tornado into his face,
Yeah.
and then he'll get that little breather as it goes over a dune, and then it's like
Hmm.
straight back to being buried
He's
in the
in it.
sand.
Yeah.
And it's just like it literally sky sand, sky sand, sky sand,
Yep.
sky sand as he slowly gets it under control.
Yeah, I really like that he doesn't start with it under control. You know, like he's scrambling, he's barely holding on. This thing is so much bigger than I was expecting it to be. Like there's a great shot of him just like his all of his outfit is fluttering behind him and he's just holding on for dear life. He's just this tiny ant on top of this giant worm and just like with both of the hooks just holding on with everything he has.
I like the summoning sequence as well, where
Mhm.
you can tell that he doesn't know 100% what he's doing because he puts the thumper down, then he unconsciously follows Chinese advice and puts it lower in the dune, then goes back
Right.
up to the top. And then you can see him measuring out where he's supposed to be standing based on the size of the worm. And
Mhm.
he goes way far off to the side.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely starts coming back a little bit as he like gets a better gauge on it. It's very much this dude's a rookie, clearly,
Yeah.
because he's trying to gauge what he's doing as he's doing it. And it's a really nice like setup to the sequence. But yeah, like you said, like that whole thing is horrifying. Dude, it was so loud in the theater as well, like
Mhm.
so loud.
Yep. Yeah, and just to see like how they depicted the like the plates on the sandworm too. I thought that stuff was really interesting and they without really
Where it's got like the air vents, like
yeah.
the thing as it pulls it up and then they close because the sand is going in. And
Yeah.
it's it's biologically, I like the fact that in the books they give a biological reason why riding the sandworm works,
Mhm.
because this is how it is. And I even like the fact that in the books they reference the fact that they rotate the sandworms based on the frequently used plates that
Yeah.
are on the downside. But I like the fact that, like you said, in this you see it come up, and then you see that like hole close as the sand hits it. And it's like, oh, now it makes sense. It's a really good visual representation of like 3 paragraphs in the book of like
Right.
Stilgar smacking him about the head, being like, "Oi, what did you learn? Tell me what you
Right.
know."
Yeah, and thankfully they avoid that in this book. Like they could have had Stilgar do a voiceover of like, this is how we turn the. And it's just like you don't need to. Like just show it, and also he can ride a sandworm. It just looks cool. That can be enough. Just let him look cool for a minute. Um, I liked, I liked that a whole bunch. Um, I feel like there's a gap here in my notes because I was just kind of watching here. Um,
Well,
the
we spend a lot of the middle of the movie doing bounces between Paul and his mother.
mhm,
Uh, Particularly like it's also like we've talked about a lot that happens here. Like he rides the worm. That's when he gets his name with
right.
the Fremen. So we are doing a lot of bouncing backwards and forwards anyway. But like I think it's paced well. Of here is Paul. Here is his mother. By the way, here is the Emperor, who we have not talked about yet. Is that potentially this bit
Yeah, I
where
think
it
this
cuts
it
to
because I think it's Paul Rise of Sandworm. We talk about the Emperor. We get Fade Routha's introduction. So like the connective tissue here, I think, is the Emperor because we get the early scene of Princess Irulan saying, you
with the
know,
Reverend Mother, right?
no, because like really early on, there's a very quick scene with her and the Emperor where she says, "And my father, the Emperor, said nothing." Like it's just him kind of
Uh-huh.
looking sad after the attack on the
Oh,
Atreides
after the
house.
Paul, yes.
Yeah, which I thought was a really good, just like quiet thing of like, here's the emperor, here's the
Uh-huh.
princess. He's he's feeling something about this, but she doesn't even know what's going on. But we get a little bit more of them here in the transition between the two the two sections of the movie.
Because I think this where the Reverend Mother is speaking to Princess Irulan and Lady Fenring,
I think so.
where they're analyzing the bloodlines and trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do about the situation as Bene Gesserit.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think this is where Fenring is sort of saying like, "I'll go handle it. I've got another
Yeah,
plan."
we need to look on this
Yeah.
other potential specimen, because
Yeah.
it does that. It's like, yeah, we have the other option of Fade Routher, and
Hmm.
that's when it cuts to Fade Routher's birthday party.
Right. Um, I like a lot of the changes here because they're not belaboring the point of like Fade Routher. This is his 100th kill and this is his birthday and stuff. I like that it's him fighting against 3 prisoners and
Uh-huh.
2 of them are drugged and kind of everybody notices the third one isn't.
Yep.
Um, and half of the people are like, boy, we need to stop this thing because it's going to go real badly. And the other half, including the Baron Harkonnen, are like, no, hold on. This might be a good show.
I hate how much I like the line "Show me who you are" from the Baron.
Yeah.
Like, that is unbelievably well delivered, because it's like, okay, you one on one with this other slave who's not drugged, but he
Yep.
doesn't have a shield.
Mm-hmm.
Like, also, can I say it rips that everyone has their own like shield designs? Like the Baron's got his weird ring thing. Fade Ralph has got like that thing that he like the magnetic diamond he wears as a buckle.
It's
And
very
like Paul
cool.
and everybody else have got the wrist things that they use in the first movie.
Yep. And
But yeah,
the movie makes it a little bit more clear that, like right away, that the 3 slaves are Atreides soldiers. That does the movie say it's basically like the last 3 Atreides? I think, but I don't remember.
yes, it does. It specifically calls out that these are the last 3 Atreides hostages.
Yeah. So there's kind of some stakes there as well. I think the one big change that I'm not upset by, though I am bummed because of how cool the character was in the book, is the dropping of the Count Fenring, because completely removed, which I get, because like you only have 3 hours, but like that was a cool. I loved that character.
Denny, I know you don't want to, Denny, but director's cuts, please.
Just one more character, please. I'm good for it. But like I loved the Count Fenring in the book of being this kind of like stumbling, mumbling guy, and then when the cone of silence comes down, he's just like given the like business.
He's a literal assassin.
Yeah, he's just like, hey man, remember me? You're asking too many questions about the prison planet. Are you stupid? How dumb are you? It's just like, oh, okay, yeah.
Dude. I know where I want the next Assassin's Creed game to be set.
There you go. We're perfect. So like, it's a bummer that he's dropped, but I like we talked about earlier, I like the Lady Fenring getting way more really stuff good. Here. The lighting in that scene.
That whole mood shift of like the camera like loses focus, then it doesn't even look like it cuts, but like it regains focus, and it's like, wait, we're in a completely different area.
Yeah, like it's really, and it's interesting to see the change in architecture between not only the Atreides homeworld, but then Arrakis and this planet. Who I will never remember the Harkonnen planet's name. But like be able to see that real stark difference, and it almost being kind of like a black and white section at that point where Lady Fenring is kind of putting the moves on Fade Routha.
Yes.
And then
Gady Prime, by the way.
Gady Prime, thank you. And then out of nowhere is like, hey, by the way, I got a little party game for us to play. It's called the Gom Jabbar. Put your hand in here. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry,
she literally does the humanity test. I was like, because it makes sense.
It does.
She'd have to do that. It would have to take place.
Is he a human or an animal?
Exactly. It would
Yep.
need to happen. And it's
Yep.
never brought up in the book if it did, and it's great.
It's a really great addition because I was like, oh, what is she gonna do? Wait a minute, hold on, and like the fact that it just cuts away is really
I do also like the double entendre of put your hand in the box,
yes,
put your right hand in the box. It's just
yep,
chef's kiss, like
yep,
reveal of that box. It's just like, yeah, okay,
yep,
okay, I see what you did there, Denis,
yeah.
you filthy person.
The next note I have here is kind of when the movie switches back to Arrakis, and there's a change here from Paul. In the book, it's Paul using the water of life and sort of reversing it to destroy the spice fields on the planet. And in the movie, it's, hey, here's the atomics.
Uh-uh. Uh-uh.
Yeah.
Who knows where the atomics are, Boston? Who haven't we talked about yet?
Yeah, we get the reintroduction here of Gurney Halleck, who
He plays his Balisette at last in the movie. Thank
he
you.
does. It's a pretty good song. That's a pretty good.
Mhm.
That's a pretty good piece. I like the
From what I've read
reintroduction.
as well, that tune is ripped from the Dune 1999 strategy game. It's one of the
Wow,
pieces of music from that,
that's pretty
which is a
good.
super deep cut.
Yeah, I still really like Josh Brolin. I really like him as Gurney. I he's
I
in
like the
this.
callback. I
Mm,
really like the callback when they meet each other for the first time. Okay, I don't like the lack of confrontation between them about dead people. I don't like the fact that we don't
yeah.
learn that it's a trap
Yep.
immediately. Um, I do like the fact that he literally says Paul says to him, "I recognize your footsteps, old man." That is a great line. That should
That's
have
a
been in the
really
book.
that's a really good line. Like, and it not only is it funny, but like it sells him as being Fremen at this point. Like that is a marker for him on the planet of this is how he's telling the difference between all of these people. And he
Mhm.
knows that these people are definitely aren't Fremen because they're just stomping around on the sand like it's nobody's business.
Yeah. Also, the fact that they do the reed pipes under the sand routine.
God, that looks so cool, man. I made a note
Uh-huh.
about that. That looks so cool. Just like these little breathing reed pipes, like, ah, man, that's great. I love it. But yeah, he knows about the Atreides atomics stores, which are kind of hidden in plain sight. That Stilgar is not super happy about. Where he's like, "How come I didn't know this stuff was here?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, man, I hid it in
Yeah, dude.
plain sight. Like, were you looking over here?" And Stilgar's like, "Shut up, stupid." Like,
Yeah.
no,
So
what?
I will admit the religion side of things here, like the believers non-believers thing.
Hmm.
I think it takes something away from Stilgar. He goes that way in the books. That's fine. I get it. What we're
Yeah,
missing is the confrontation. There is a lot more tension built up between Stilgar and Paul in this entire sequence
yeah,
of it's almost time for us to fight to the death kind of thing. Whereas I
right,
don't think the movie emphasizes that fact enough. Like it should have had a
yeah,
scene of Stilgar being like, "Look, I became leader of Sietch Tabor when I took my Chris knife and shoved it into the heart of the person who was the leader before me.
hmm,
When the time comes, you'll have to do the same." Like they should
right,
have rammed that home, rammed that emphasis home, because
right,
the line he Paul delivers later, well delivered, of "Would you have me cut off my right hand?" It does not mean anywhere near as much without that huge buildup of tension,
right,
knowing that the outcome of that is going to be a fight to the death.
right. Because in the book, it's like, "Would you have me break my knife before a fight?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, the tension is ramped between the two of them. And in the movie, a lot of it is sort of like, yeah, the
Still goes
Emperor,
like, "It's the Lisan Al Gaib. He'll lead us
right, and like,
eventually. I guess I'll die. Oh no."
yeah, like the Emperor is coming, and we need to fight. Seems like Paul's pretty good about fighting, so that sounds good. It's
Uh-huh.
like, eh, yeah, I mean, I guess. Um, I do like that the movie is two was also like, oh yeah, I have 92 warheads in here, and I was like, how many? Excuse me, pardon?
Uh-huh.
That's huh?
I was expecting like 5, dude.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, we got 92. And I was like, that's too many. 5 is too many. 92 is, boy.
Uh-huh.
Um,
It
I,
also does explain why it's the Great Convention, though. Is
right.
yo, this is why we don't use this stuff because
Yeah. Got a lot
otherwise
of
the
them.
humans are gone.
Yeah. Um, I have a note here that I do like that we actually get to see Princess Irulan writing the diary entries. I was for sure that was going to be a thing that was going to get cut. Was like, we're not going to make the mistakes of the 1985 Dune movie. Nobody is doing a voiceover. Nobody's writing nothing. Like, we're not.
Uh-huh.
Make no
I
mistake.
like. I love the fact that she uses a dictaphone and it writes it on
Yes.
those like metal message tubes.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah,
It's
that's
really
sick,
good.
man.
Yep. And there's enough of it there to sort of be a fun wink and nod, and enough of it there to
Hmm.
help propel the story forward. But I appreciate that that was there, but they didn't hang on to it too much. Um,
Yeah.
I have a note here. I don't remember if this happens before or after the like big meeting with all the Fremen leaders. I was surprised that we saw them actually drown a baby sandworm. Um,
That is before because it's a long time before because that's
okay.
when Jessica goes to see the the keeper of the worm
Mm-hmm.
and uses the voice on her
Mm-hmm.
and says a man will come and want to do this, you will let him.
Right.
Um
Yeah, because she's like, I'm not. It's gonna kill him. What are you talking about? Like, I'm not gonna have. I'm not
uh-huh,
gonna kill a dude, and then we get to use the voice, which still
uh-huh.
sounds incredible. That's still a
It
really
does,
great
and it's
effect.
not used as much in this movie.
No.
Like the few times it is used, I think it's used relatively well.
Yeah.
um I don't did I can't remember, does he use be silent on the Reverend Mother in the end? I don't think he does. One of my
I don't
favorite
think he
uses of the
does.
voice
Yeah, I don't think he
in the
talks
entire
to her
book.
much. I think Jessica and the Reverend Mother talk a little bit, but I don't. I don't know. Yeah,
Hmm.
that stuff is changed. But like, I I I was surprised because
I was not expecting to see it.
no, and I
100%
was
no.
expecting them to cut that entire thing of like, it's the water of life. Don't worry about it. It's a Fremen thing. But it's like, no, man. We're holding this sandworm under the water. We're gonna jab this thing into its many ringed mouth, and we're gonna pull out this
Hmm.
blue Baja Blast. And here we go. Let's do
I
it.
like the fact that it's two big pools as well. A pool of sand and a pool of water right
Yep.
next to each other.
I really, it's a very cool effect. That little sandworm under the sand, that like little self-contained pool
Hmm.
of sand, just a very cool. Sand is cool, and watching sand move is cool. I'm glad they had enough of it in this movie to be like, yeah, man, this sand and
Yeah.
sandworms, pretty rad. So,
There's a there's a couple of really good scenes with the vibrating sand in this movie,
oh
I
man,
think.
continues to be
It's
incredible.
Yeah, I can't even
Yeah.
remember what it is. Oh, it's the very start of the movie where they kill all of the Sardaukar slash Harkonnens, put them
Mm-hmm.
in a big pile and put a thumper next to it, and then the
Oh
sand starts vibrating right under the bodies.
man, what a
It's like snack
cool
time.
what a cool thing just to see that like the huge pile and then again to see the sandworm's mouth be even bigger than that. I'll never get
Hmm.
sick of that. Just be like, look how big that thing is. That's impossibly
Yup.
huge. Jesus, that's terrifying.
Oh, by the way,
Mm.
during my research, I did make like a couple of notes, but I forgot about them. Thufir was back for this movie, and his scenes got cut.
Oh really?
Yes,
That's a
and
bummer.
as we thought, Tim Blake Nelson did record a bunch of scenes as Count Fenring, and they got cut too.
Boo hiss. I that guy's great. He's been great in
Mhm.
everything. Man, he would have been good as Fenring too.
Uh, but yeah, before we got to the plan, we got
Mm-hmm.
Paul doing the everyone has to go south thing because someone challenged the Emperor to a fight. Um,
Yep.
and also here come the Harkonnens. Actually, it's here come the Harkonnens because now they're gonna basically dethrone Robin. Kiss the boot scene is Chef's kiss really scary, by the way.
And also, like, so much of the Beast Raban stuff in this movie is so good of just him not being able to control and everybody questioning, like, yeah, man, like, you're killing some Fremen. That's great. You don't know who Muad'Dib is, and you're losing a lot of Harkonnen, bro. Like,
Mhm.
way more than you're killing. So, you sure you
But
got
yeah,
it? You're not producing spice? Like, what are you doing, man?
yeah, Fade Routher doing that whole sequence where he's just like, "No, you don't get it. Like,
You're
you
right.
don't understand. You
Yep.
have embarrassed this family enough."
Oh,
And he's
so
like,
good.
"Kiss the boot.
That's right.
Go
Oh,
on, kiss the boot."
so unsettling. Oh man, he's so good. Austin Butler, 2 thumbs up. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that happens, and we get the because everybody's gone south. Paul has finally gone south. The thing he was fighting against the whole movie.
mm-hmm.
Again, this is the transition. This is the
Right,
is he really a hero? Is he a villain kind of sequence?
right.
Because he then goes, and while everyone goes one direction, he goes a different direction, and he
Yep,
goes to the place where the ceremony takes place to get the water of life.
yep. Is what in the movie? What is his? Because I don't remember. Why is he going to get the water of life? Because I don't
So
remember.
I think he's going there because I think he does talk about not being able to see.
Oh, right, because he has more like premonition gaps. That it's like there are
Yes,
more and more gaps happening, and he's starting to freak out.
and he keeps having the one he keeps having is him going south and following someone,
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of eventually, I think, when the Harkonnens come back and start regaining territory, that's when he's like, CH Tabor is destroyed, legitimately destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he is annoyed because he didn't see it because his visions aren't as great. So
Right.
that's when they all head south to move away from everything. Cool sandstorms, by the way, great
Very cool.
sandstorms.
Yep.
When they all go south, he goes off on his own and goes to the actual thing. Dude, we didn't talk about Beast Raban going into the desert and trying to get after Muad'Dib and
Yeah.
almost dying. That sequence is great.
That sequence is great of him just like running away with his tail between his legs, of
Yeah,
just
he's like
like,
he
I
comes
messed
out
up.
shouting Muad'Dib, and then
Yep.
everybody's dead. He's like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, I gotta go. Bye. Yeah, that was really.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that scene. There's
Me
more
too.
Dave Bautista in this movie than
There's a
I
whole
remembered.
bunch that we've missed, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah. Again,
But yeah,
apologies if we're missing large chunks of this movie. Saw it in theaters once, so
uh-huh,
like we're not like referring to the Blu-ray, which I'm 100% going to be pre-ordering as soon as I can because it's going to look amazing.
same.
Yeah.
Yep, give me that hate 4K HDR, please.
Oh
Thank you.
man. Yeah. Goodness. Um.
But yeah, that's when he goes through and does the whole water of life thing.
Yep.
Jessica being a villain right here.
Yeah.
Again, the dehumanizing of Paul, which I get to if you're heading towards Doom Messiah without knowing you get to do Doom Messiah, I get why you take this path.
Hmm.
But Chani coming in, not being summoned with kindness, but being summoned because she's forced to be summoned,
Yeah. Like
essentially.
you fix him. Go do it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like Chani basically saying to Jessica, like, this is your fault, like,
Yep.
this is all on you. Literally says to Jessica, you did it, you fix it, and Jessica uses the voice on Chani and says, do it.
Oh, it's
Um,
heartbreaking.
it is, and again, I can see the angles they're coming from, especially if you take that Doom Messiah question into account.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's this whole sequence, legit in the book, legitimizes their relationship as a trio, like the son and the potential daughter-in-law. Like, they have that whole secret hidden conversation where they're talking about niceties while they both know that something urgent is happening and they
Right.
don't want to say it. Like,
How's
that's
things
a cool
going?
sequence.
Right.
And then Jessica being like, yeah, I summoned you because I didn't know what to do, and the only thing I could think of was to summon you.
Hmm.
Like, I
Yeah.
think that's a great sequence, and it really builds that relationship between Chani and Paul, and again, the humanization aspect of it.
Right.
Whereas here, it's like, no, you're gonna fix him because I tell you to fix it because I got the voice.
Right. Yeah, and like bend to my
It's
will, just fix it.
yeah, it doesn't feel like an act of love,
Right.
whereas it does in the book. Here, it feels like an act of Jessica's doing it to protect her prophecy, and Chani doesn't want to do it because she doesn't want to be involved in the prophecy.
Right, and it's not even in the movie, it's not even the bend isn't even that Jessica is doing it to save her son. It's not
No,
even
she's
that,
doing it because of the Kwisatz
because
Haderach.
she's a Bene Gesserit. Like,
Yeah,
and that's what she has to do. Like, it's you reminding me of how that happened in the book. I liked that way better of Jessica
this is the
finally.
most disappointing scene for me as a
Right.
whole. This sequence where he goes and takes the drink and then comes out of it.
Yeah.
I think they missed a few beats in the movie of trying to explain exactly what he has done to himself, because you kind of
Yeah.
get the idea in the book of like, I've seen 1,000,000,000 futures and now I'm a monster because of it, and I know that I'm
Right.
a monster.
And I can see the
Whereas in this,
future
he
and
just
the present.
shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in this, he just kind of jumps. He jumps from the Paul who doesn't want to go south to the Kwisatz Haderach
Right.
immediately. He
As
just
soon as he wakes
becomes the
up.
monster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think
I
they,
think there should have been a transition period there.
yeah, because I think they try and explain the situation when he sort of storms in front of the Fremen leadership, and they start approaching the kind of like, I am the Lisan al Gaib, like I am
Uh-huh.
Muad'Dib, I'm this, and he starts reading the minds of the people around him. I think,
Yeah, and it should have been elaborated on that he's doing that based on conversations he would have had with people in timelines that are alternative.
yeah, he's like pulling timelines and like future stuff and alternate timelines and stuff, but like I feel like this is one scene that like I don't think all the way comes together. Is I
I think the performance is great.
Oh,
Like
it's so good.
his performance as that person in that moment, I
Yeah.
think is great.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think there's certain things, little tweaks here and there that I personally would have made to try and elaborate on exactly what the situation is. But I think the problem with that is you get there by having transition like sections
Yeah.
where you see exactly what it is, the effect. Him and Chani waking up and him explaining to Chani what has happened to him, what he
Right.
feels, what he sees. Him having a conversation with Jessica that's not all poison, which is what their relationship essentially becomes at this point.
Right.
Um, like you get to that scene by having the build to it. And I think that's the little bit that I'm not a huge fan of, because
Yeah.
this feels like a payoff moment with not enough build.
Yeah, because I
Like,
think the movie at this point, you know, when you're watching movies that like run out of time or run out of budget, at some point the movie feels like it's just kind of like running downhill and it's like pinwheeling its arms to stay upright. This movie doesn't get to that level, but I feel like at this point the movie sort of feels like it has a momentum that it can't break out of, and
mhm.
this scene is kind of endemic of that, of like I need to keep this movie moving. I can't flash forward, flash back, flash to the side. I can't show that the Emperor's like we gotta keep moving, and
Yeah,
Muad'Dib needs to take control of the Fremen now, because stuff is going to happen here in about 10 minutes that we just got to get to.
yeah.
So,
Like, because like this is the whole thing, that this speech results in him sending a direct challenge to the Emperor,
yep,
skipping over the Harkonnens completely. And then when
right,
the Emperor arrives, the Harkonnens think that the Emperor's there to deal with them.
right,
It misses the whole part where no, he reveals himself to the Sardaukar, who are there because they don't like the Fremen kind of situation.
right.
And again, that is a great sequence where there's the tension build-up of
Hmm.
Stilgar and Paul again, where it's like he rescues Chani, not fight. Like that's
Right,
what he does.
right.
But the speech is great. Like
Yeah.
I love the delivery of the speech, the way this room looks. I lo- I love the fact that they have the council leaders, and as Paul comes into the room, everybody stands up, and the
Mm-hmm.
whole Chani being the last to stand and getting dragged down
Mm-hmm.
by Gurney is a comedic timing of amazingness.
Yep.
Um, but I like the fact that as he walks into the middle, everyone's like, "How dare you!" And he's like, let's have the I'm the Duke of Arrakis speech
That's
right
right.
now. This is
You
my
can't
ring."
nuh-uh me. I rule this planet. It's like, oh dang.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I think
Sure.
I think that the delivery of the speech is good. I like the
Yep.
fact that he does do the nobody here could take me, and then people stand up because they want to take him, and he's like, no, no.
Sit back down.
But he like this is the thing I don't like is he puts them down using his powers, using the ability to tell them how they're feeling at that moment.
Right.
He doesn't put them down with logic like he does in the book, where it's like, you all
Right.
know this. I've trained with you. I've fought with you.
You know
Not
who
a
I
single
am?
one of you could do this one on one. You
Right.
could not take me.
And you
Period.
know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know it.
Yeah.
Like,
So
like
sit down.
that. I think that's the like. I think the movie speech is really good.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about him yet, but Timothy Chalamet's performance is.
It's really
I
good.
think it's really good. The certain moments I'm not a huge fan of,
Mm-hmm.
but again, that's less his fault, more the plot and the story wise like side
Right.
of things. But like Zendaya's, I really hate you / mean look that she has.
Oh, it's so
I
good.
think Timothy Chalamet has a really good stone face killer face that he does, where it
Yeah.
just goes blank, and he's just like, "This is who I am now."
And it's interesting because I think there I think there's a level of innocence to his portrayal of Paul at the beginning of this movie, and then
Yeah,
all of
and the
that
entire first movie.
in the entire first movie, yeah. And like that slowly slipping through this entire movie to where he is at the end of this movie is probably something that I don't think I'll appreciate fully until I watch it another couple of times, to just see
Mhm.
that transition, especially across both movies, of just him turning from this kid who doesn't want to be on this sandy planet into the Duke of Arrakis.
Yeah. So that's the funny thing is when I saw some promo footage about this movie, and it was Denis talking about Timothy Chalamet. He's like, "Look, when he came in and he did Dune, he was a fantastic actor. He genuinely was.
Mm-hmm.
He genuinely is a fantastic actor. Since we've done that movie, he's gone off and done a whole nother movie, and he's come
Right.
back with skills and talents and abilities that he didn't have when he left. So
Oh,
he's a
okay.
better actor now than he was when he left us for the first one, because he's
Right.
gone and refined his art even more and more and more. So and he even says, like, I think you'll be surprised at some of the portrayal he can do. And he does a great job of being like, hey, I'm literally just a machine at this point, and I will do what I want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. Just like one standout performance after another in this movie. Long
Live the Fighters give me goosebumps, by the way, just for
Yeah,
the record.
really good. Really good. And I think this leads directly into the
The
big,
final confrontation,
yeah,
yes.
the kind of climax here of the movie. Um
I like that Chani refers to herself as a Fedaykin throughout the course of the movie, and
mhm,
acts like a Fedaykin through the course of the movie.
mhm.
Um, I think it's funny that in the book, the Fedaykin is specifically Paul's death squads, not just death squads in general.
Right.
But whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's like, no, I'm a fighter. I go where the fighting goes. Even if she hates everything about the situation, even if she's not a big fan of who Paul is becoming or
Right.
become, she still is there at the final attack, leading men in the way that is the best way to win the fight.
Mhm. Yeah. And I do, again, Zendaya's great. I do like her portrayal of Chani at this point, of having that level of internal struggle of like, I really don't want it. This is all a bad idea, and this is all really terrible. And Paul is definitely not who I think he should be. But I'm still going to defend my people, and I'm still going to defend Arrakis. But boy, this is just a bad idea. All right, let's go.
She does the business too. Also,
Yep.
thank you for not using those stupid CG fighting armor that we saw in the first
No.
movie. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's not.
Thank you for just
Glad they're
having them
gone.
fight in their still suits.
Yep. I mean, that's what it should be. Like that's the suit they live
It's who they
in. Like,
are.
yeah, like, yeah. Um, I really like the look of all of these spaceships, especially the Emperor's spaceship is descending on that like meeting pyramid thing.
Yep.
Just some cool space stuff. Like, here's a cool space building. Here's a cool spaceship. Look at how cool this stuff looks. It's like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
You're right. This
100%.
stuff looks incredible.
Not enough guild chips in this movie, though.
No, yeah. I'd be curious to see why that was. Because in the book, it always seemed like, hey, there's
The guild are very important in the book.
Yeah, and like there's an
become even
impossible
more
number
so.
of them here, and not so much in the movie. But it was saved all the CG budget for a shot that's coming up here in a minute.
Are we going to talk about? Are we talking about the nuke shot, or are we talking about the three worm shot? Because
the three worm shot, man, it's so cool. It's just
this
the
whole
coolest
sequence
thing.
is great. Like,
yeah,
I visually, I don't know what I was expecting from this particular sequence, because this is a tough sequence to film at the best of times.
Yep.
I do find it funny that they retconned what they did in the first movie, because in the first movie, when they're flying over Arrakeen, they talk about the shield wall around the city, and it's just a wall, ignoring the fact that it's actually the circle of mountains around Arrakeen.
Yep.
And then in this, they literally blow up the shield wall, and it's the mountains. It's not the wall around the city.
Right.
And yeah, like, again, cool guys don't look at explosions moments.
Nope.
With the nukes
Gotta
going
have
off.
Yep.
I mean, if there ever was a trailer shot, I mean, that's it, right?
Yeah, 100%. God, so cool.
Yeah, three worms, PTSD, Chihuahua, whatever dog it is.
Yeah, just like, what an incredible shot of, like, you know what's going to come through that sand. Like, there's going to be a sandworm coming through that sand.
I hate the fact that he calls her out. I hate the fact that he says it in the planning meeting where they've got like the little map. Stilgar, you take your forces through here after I blow a hole in the shield wall. Don't mention the worms. Let that come naturally, because you know it.
You hope the worms are coming.
But you'll know it, and you'll feel it, and you'll hope, and then those things come out of the storm.
Oh,
it's a really good shot.
That long shot of the storm, and then just the three mouths coming out, is just, it's so good. Man.
It's a great sequence, because it's like it's the fallout from the explosions of the three nukes that he blows up the mountains with. Then it's the Sardaukar like recovering their trying to deal with like the sand and everything else in front of them, and then the wind comes through and clears everything away right as the worms come over the mountain.
Oh man, it's just, and it's interesting because I think because the worm shot is so cool, there isn't a ton of Fremen versus Sardaukar fighting, and I think that's okay, because that shot of the three worms is incredible. I was like, yeah man, I'm good. Oh, there's more fighting down there? Sure, whatever. Great.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, you don't really need a whole bunch of fight. You get it. Like everybody is outmatched.
Yeah.
Like 60 billion people are gonna die real quick, and you know why that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I do change from the book. It's time to talk about it. Gurney versus Beast.
Yeah. I liked a lot of this section. It was shorter than I was expecting, but
100%. I think that's kind of funny, because that also proves the point that the Atreides fighting men were really good fighting men.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, Beast Raban is great. I'm way better. Just just naturally.
You ain't nothing.
Yeah. And I like it because Gurney gets some revenge against the Harkonnen.
He gets exactly, and specifically the one who killed his sister, who doesn't get mentioned in the movie.
Right. And I like it because Gurney doesn't have to push against Paul to fight Feyd-Rautha that much at the end. He's more
Yeah,
like,
because he's
hey,
had this.
yeah, he's like, hey man, I could go do this, and Paul's like, no, I'll take care of it. And he's like, all right, I mean, I already killed Beast Raban, so like, whatever, go crazy. I'm already pretty pooped from a fight, so whatever.
Yeah. I'm still disappointed they didn't specifically call out Canley, which is should have been called out, I feel, but whatever. But yeah, he gets his revenge, which I like. I don't like the fact that his sister doesn't get a call out.
Yeah,
He says like, this is for me. This is for this scarf and my Duke, my friends.
right.
Like, no, and your sister. Say and your sister.
There's
End
someone
this
else
with
in
and
there.
Your sister.
Yeah,
like please.
Yeah.
But then I realized she didn't even get mentioned in the first movie. Like,
that's true.
Like, but still, it's a 2 words, 3 words, throwaway line that's not going to matter to anybody else. You will get it from context if he says it in that moment.
Exactly.
But to the book readers, it probably means a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, so round up the hostages. Oh, actually, so how do we feel about the death of Baron Harkonnen? Because this is that sequence now, where the Sardaukar are protecting the Emperor's posse, and the Baron is climbing the steps to the throne.
It's such a great performance from Stellan Skarsgård, and it's such a great shot of him. Like, I love the buildup of this, of still Harkonnen being like, what, it's Muad'Dib, whatever, like it's like some religious fanatic, who cares, like it doesn't even matter. And the Emperor's like, oh who cares, oh it doesn't, like, yeah, just killing a whole bunch of our people, who cares, what does it matter?
He still gets his dressing down, yes.
Yeah, I love that he still gets his dressing down.
And the Terror's repulses out as well.
Yes, which I think is a really great little, like, final, like, spit in the face of just like, this is, you're getting your just desserts from sort of who you've decided to be, and I thought that was really great.
Yeah, but the fact that it was Paul who did it,
yeah,
like I like the fact he literally, like, they wipe out the Sardaukar protecting the Emperor, except for the ones who formed the box around the party. I like the fact that he literally, I honestly thought he was just going to go straight up the steps and sit on that throne. That's literally what I thought he was going to do.
Me too.
And instead he goes and, I can't even remember if he reveals that he's his grandfather at that moment or not. But he goes, kills him, and then on his way out the door, he's like, kill the Sardaukar, round up the hostages, bring them to Iraqeen.
Yep. Peace.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
We get the final confrontation in Iraqeen in front of those doors that you like so much.
Oh man, they're so cool. It's just, that whole building is just so cool, man. Give me some of that good sci-fi giant doors. Yeah. I love so much about this scene overall. I really like Christopher Walken's performance here, especially of just, he's terrified, especially now that he's seen,
and stubborn as hell.
Yeah, and like still trying to flex his power, but still being kind of intimidated and terrified of Muad'Dib here, especially in the flesh, and realizing who he is. And he's just like, great, this has not turned out well at all for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who calls who out, if Paul calls out Feyd or Feyd calls out Paul.
I don't remember.
But the fight is pretty good.
Is this before or after Paul asks why the Emperor didn't help the Atreides?
Yes, I think it's after, because I think. Actually, I don't know.
Because I wrote down the line that the Emperor says about Leto, that says he believed in the rules of the heart, but the heart was not meant to rule. And I was like, oh, bro, sheesh, that's hard. That's harsh. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think that might be before, because I think after he drops that bomb on Paul, I think Paul's like, "Cool, I'll take the princess."
Yep.
Like he's
It's
ordering
that if
a
that's how you
to-go
want to
meal.
play it, I want that lady. I'll be the
Yeah,
emperor. I'll take her. Don't you worry about it. I'll take care of the whole thing.
you're gonna take a step back and a
Hmm.
step down from your responsibilities,
Yep, because Paul
and
had
I'll
talked to Chani before this about being like, "Hey, no matter what happens, like you and me, we're still tight. Don't worry about it."
yes, and so this is another Zendaya's amazing face acting
Hmm.
moment, because like you said it before, like she does a decent job sort of being like torn between Paul she knows, which we don't get to see enough of in the movie,
Yeah.
um, and the Paul who the Muad'Dib, the Lisan al Gaib, but she's
Hmm.
torn. She loves one and she hates the other.
Right.
Um, and in this sequence where he starts talking about the princess, you can it's the Ralph Wiggum moment
It's yeah. Here's
where
the
like
exact moment his heart breaks. Like,
yeah, it's that exact thing.
yeah,
The fact that I could say that and you know immediately what I'm
yeah.
talking about tells you how good her
But you
performance is.
like as soon as he says like I'll take the princess, you just see the betrayal on her face of just like, but
Mm-hmm.
it was us. Like the two of us are the
Mm-hmm.
thing, but now you care about power more than you care about me.
Yeah. Which again, I think it's the thing. I get it. You're doing it because you don't know if you're going to get a three. I get it.
Right.
100%. I understand completely why you're doing it this way.
Right.
But I miss that human connection. I miss that moment where she's so heartbroken. We didn't even talk about Leto 2, by the way, who's not in the movie.
God, I
Um,
totally forgot about that. Yeah. Don't worry about that little
uh-huh.
guy. He's
Yeah.
not here.
Don't worry about his firstborn son who died.
Right.
Uh, we're just gonna skip right over that section right
Yep.
here. Uh, but like, she's heartbroken in that moment because her son is dead. All of it, like CH Tabor has been raided
Hmm.
by the Sardaukar, and now she's finding out that the love of her life is actually going to be interested in somebody else. And again, it's that trifecta connection of Paul, Chani, and Jessica, where it's Paul who's trying to explain it to her, and Jessica who calms her down, who makes her
Right.
see the situation as a whole, kind of thing. And I'm so glad the film didn't end on that line from the book. Thank
Right.
goodness.
100%.
Um, but her performance of that heartbreak moment, because she flickers a lot.
Yep.
She flickers from heartbroken to stubborn and a fighter, then back to heartbroken, then stubborn and a
Hmm.
fighter, then concerned, then a stubborn and a fighter. And like, part of me thinks that Paul got stabbed in the abdomen to prove a point that she still cares. Because when he
Mm.
gets stabbed in the abdomen, he looks at her, and
Yeah.
she looks like she cares still.
Yep. Oh, man. And like the whole fight between Paul and Fade Routha is really good. It's that
Mm-hmm.
there's that great moment of Paul just sort of being like, "Oh, there's somebody else that's really good out here. I can't just sleep my way through this fight. Like this is something I got to take care of myself for
Mm-hmm.
real." Um,
Could have done with a bit more Fade Router cockiness in the build up to this, like calling him a
yeah,
vagabond and stuff like that. I think.
I'm
Um,
glad they dropped so much of the like. Does he have a shield? Is he what's possibly
the shield
happening?
slowed and yeah,
Yeah, like that sort of thing from the
I do
book.
miss the poison belt though, like the poison on
Yeah.
the belt, which
Yep.
kind of sums up Fade Router's character in the book. I think like yeah, he's a good fighter, but he also got poison in his side pocket.
Yeah, he's got poison
Um,
everywhere, man.
I do call back again. You fight well, Atreides.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what he said to the slave in the arena. Nice little
Yep.
callback.
And I like the shot where I was fairly sure that Fade Routha actually got a shot in on Paul when the two of them were like, it looked like they both stabbed each other.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really good because, like, at that point, as someone who had read the book recently, I was like, man, are
This is
they like,
different enough.
yeah,
It's
like,
different enough where
are
you
they
don't.
changing
Are
the
they gonna
ending
do it?
here? Yeah, like, are we going all the way here? Um, And I like that there was just a little bit of doubt, and then when they move the camera down, it's just sort of like, oh, okay. Paul got messed up a little bit, but Phaedra isn't making it off this planet.
Yep. So to really convey how monstrous Paul is, I like the fact that essentially the Emperor agrees to his deal at this point, and he just puts his hand out.
Yep.
And says nothing. Doesn't move. Doesn't do anything.
It's so
says
cold, man.
Nothing.
You know what to do.
And then he waits. He waits for a good minute and then stomps his foot. And that stomp was so loud in the theaters. Like, it was really loud. It's like, damn, dude, that's really cold.
The Emperor knows what to do. You just got to do it, man. And then, like, the coldest line ever here at the end is just lead them to paradise. I'm just like, oh, bro. Oh, man. Brutal. Jesus. That was my only second to last note here in the movie, was just that quote of just like, jeez, man.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I really wish they would have ended with Arrakis was made to train the faithful.
Yeah, like them not having that line anywhere. It's just such a cool line that I get it, but like it would have been nice to have that kind of understanding of Arrakis always needs to be Arrakis and not because of the spice.
Yeah, because it's a hard planet and
right.
Okay. So I don't know if we talked about this with the books, probably did. But the whole hard times make hard people is a truism. It is relatively true. Hard times do make hard people. That's kind of what they do. And I think this is a prime example of a hard planet making very hard people because the planet is very hard. That being said, it's okay to be soft. It's okay to feel and emote and everything else that quote unquote hard times don't allow you to do.
Right.
But it's kind of the point of the people. It's kind of the point of the planet. It's kind of the point of
the planet has sharpened and shaped the Fremen.
Yes, and that's kind of the whole thing behind them. And I think it does the books a little bit of a disservice to not have that line in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like maybe when he's doing the speech, the big old speech, and like he pronounces himself the Lisan al Gaib, maybe at that point he can say, Arrakis was made to train the faithful, and they are all faithful at that point. Like there's good moments here to do it. But the fact that they don't is a little disappointing.
Yeah. But at least we do get the final shot of Chani in the movie. Just
heading back into the desert.
Just that look on her face, just heading back into the desert, was just like, oh, man. Paul, you messed up, bro. Yikes.
Now, you don't know Dune Messiah, obviously. We've mentioned the fact.
And even with this movie coming out, and even with... So I've been kind of... To take a tangent. It's been nice to see so many people see these two movies without having read the books. And a lot of people will be like, I couldn't make it through the books. I watched both these movies. I loved them. Dune seems super cool. I'm going to go check out some of the books. And then there being the usual recommendation of like, just read X number of books. Here's that famous image of don't read these last ones unless you hate yourself and everything that...
You're interested in Dune, here is book 1. You're interested in Paul's story, here is 3 books. You're interested in Paul and his family's story, here is 5 books. You're interested in more of the universe, here is 7 books. Here is 27 books, you just ignore them.
Yeah, like if you hate yourself and everything that the author stood for, then read all of these other ones. But it's been nice to see that people are using this as like a stepping stone into the books. But even with that, there's still a level of
what next?
Not spoiling anything for the future books of like, look, if you like these movies, if you like that first book, you should at least read the next one and maybe the one after that, and then kind of see how you feel. But there's still this level of like, I'm not going to spoil it for you. You just need to go take the ride.
Yeah, and it's the funny thing because it's the Final Fantasy VII thing all over again, where it's like,
Mm,
oh hey, this is a brand new game that came out 20 something years ago. We probably shouldn't spoil the spoiler that happens at the end of that game,
right.
should we?
Exactly. Right.
Like, and people seem to be doing from everything. When I hear people talking about that game, people do not drop the spoiler that I've seen really.
Right.
Um, and it's interesting for me as well, like seeing the pathways that lead to the other books in here. Um,
Mm,
like seeing the potentiality of a three. I'd love to
sure.
see a three. I'd love to see. I'd love for him to at least get the chance to tell Paul's story.
Okay.
Um, because Paul's story officially ends with Doom Messiah. There is a hard stop. Paul's story officially ends with Children of Dune, but Paul's main story ends with Dune Messiah. There is a hard stop to his story. There are things that happen, and the story continues. The book after is called Children of Dune. That tells you everything you need to know about who that is about.
Wink.
Um, um, but that whole book has very interesting things in it.
Mhm.
Um, introduces a whole bunch of other stuff to the universe as well. The guild get focused on a lot more in that. So did the Bene Tlaxu,
Mm.
who I don't even think you've heard about yet.
I have not. No.
Maybe even just in passing.
Hmm.
Long story: the Bene Tlaxu are very much like the Bene Gesserit, except they're a race of people who believe in machines. So they
Ah.
go right to the edge
Mm.
of the Butlerian instructions, and then
Ah.
kind of push against the boundaries a little bit here and there.
Right.
Like they also do like biological genetic experiments that things that live on the Harkonnens planet probably came from the Bene Tlaxu. I'll say that
Ah.
much.
Sure. Sure.
Like
Y-
it's interesting
Yeah.
because Chani is very important in Messiah as well. Obviously, she's
Hmm.
Paul's quote unquote wife. Um, but that's also where you get a lot of Princess Irulan. You get a lot more
Mm.
expanding of that side of things.
Right.
I would love for Denis to get that one more movie, just the one more. Give me
Yeah.
that, and you could even call it Doom Messiah because it doesn't have to be called Part Three. You could, or you
Sure.
could just call it Doom Messiah. You know?
Right. Yeah. So how did you feel about this movie overall as Dune fan and kind of the person who's over this season kind of introduced not only me but probably a bunch of people listening to this to the world of the Dune books.
I mean, I do think it's a genuinely good movie. I
Mhm.
do. Um, and hopefully at this point you understand that when I say there's things I don't like about it because they're different to the book, I'm not downgrading the film because of it.
Right.
I'm respecting the film because that's probably a path they have to choose based on the fact that there's no genuine, honest, open solution if they're gonna get a three or not.
Right.
Like we don't know. Who even has contracts for potentially three
Right.
movies? Who knows at this point? Like
Well, and
we
it's
don't know.
the realities of like making something that's adapting a different work. Like there has
Hmm.
to be changes and differences and allowances made. This isn't like an animated movie, so you can just do whatever
Yeah,
you want. Like there has to be something that's different.
yeah, and like there, I can appreciate why they did certain things. I think Chani is about as important in this as she is in the book. I think she's
Hmm.
important for different reasons than
Sure.
she's important in the book. I think Jessica is probably the one who's hardest done by in the movie
Yeah.
compared to the book, which I think is a little sad because as much as I hate the fact that she has the whole Bene Gesserit thing going on and the Bene Gesserit are a problem, eugenics and all that jazz, while I do think that's an issue, she's not Gaius Helen Mohayim. She's
Mm-hmm.
not that level of Bene Gesserit.
Right.
Like the thing we know first and foremost about her is she's Leto's quote unquote wife and Paul's mother.
Right.
That seems to be her primary role. Bene Gesserit second,
Hmm.
which by the time you get to the end of the book, it's 100% what she is, because you got
Right.
that moment where Paul's spilling the Bene Gesserit secrets, and Gaius Helen Mohiam says to Jessica, "Tell him to stop," and
Right.
she's like, "Tell him yourself."
Right.
Like,
I'm not your puppet. Shut up.
she literally is on the opposite side of that coin, like
Yeah.
completely by the end of the book, and I think she's done a little bit dirty. I mean, I'd still like it. I'm still going to buy it when it comes out
Yeah.
physically. I'm still going to probably rewatch it. I will say I will probably rewatch the first movie more than I rewatch this one.
Yeah.
Because I think the first movie has more shock in it.
Hmm.
I think the soundtrack is probably better in the first movie. Like the second movie is good, but I think those moments in the first movie with the soundtrack, when he has that revelation moment or whatever, and it does that loud vocals that come over the top of like
Oh
revelation
yeah.
moments,
That's great.
like I think that they stand out so much more in the first movie than they do in this one. Um, I was surprised at how little the soundtrack kind of stood out to me in this movie compared to that.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even realize that until you mentioned it.
Um, I think it's fun. I think it's good. I
Hmm.
think it's a very good alternative. And when I went to see it in the theater, I was actually talking with somebody about this, and like I was explaining, like, look, I don't play 4X games,
Hmm.
but I started to play Dune, the 4X game, whatever it's called, Spice Rush.
Spice
I don't know.
Wars.
Yes,
Yeah.
Spice Rush sounds like a Candy Crush clone.
That's right. That's right.
Match enough shapes together and see the future
Right.
kind of
Match
thing.
3 Sardaukar.
I hate you so much. But I felt like I could play that more because I got the context from knowing the books. So I
Right.
knew what the Landsraad was. I knew what the Spacing Guild was. I knew what this meant and that meant because I was so entrenched in this stuff.
Hmm.
And I think the two movies, I think, give you a very good opportunity to go into the books and make your way through those first like 8, 9 chapters
Yeah.
of
That first rough part.
nightmarish hellscape that you have
Yeah.
to make it through before you get into the rest of it. Like,
Yep.
I think this is an easing into that part. And I mean, if you've seen the movies and not read the books and you've listened to us talk about them,
Hmm.
go give them a shot now.
Yeah.
Now that you have that connection, it doesn't really matter if you when you read the books and you see the name Paul. It doesn't matter if you see Timothy Chalamet. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter at all. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you see. The important thing is that you see something and you give it a shot if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. Whatever. The movies are fine.
Yeah.
But I'm overall, I'm happy with it. I'm
Yeah.
happy with it got made, dude.
Yeah. Like impossibly, it got made. It's in theaters. It's a finished thing. Like it's. I think that's incredible. I'm very much in the same boat that you are. Like I think we're talking about over this last very long episode. Um, there are things that got changed that I'm not crazy about. There's things that got added that I'm not crazy about. But some of the stuff that
Is
got changed, I love. And oh god,
Mhm. Like, what is your? I've specifically called out a couple of moments here and there. What is your biggest disappointment between the book and the movie, or even the actually the biggest disappointment and the best thing that the movie did that the book didn't? Because
I
for
think
me,
my,
the best thing is Gurney Halleck killing Beast Raban. That is my favorite thing that the book doesn't do that the
yeah,
movie does.
I think I'm there with you because I think that changes
It
the
changes
out
his entire character arc.
and it changes the end of the movie of just like in the book. Gurney was like, I need to kill Fade Routher because I need to get revenge on the Harkonnens. Like this is how I get my revenge. And he already got revenge. Like he got the dude that he needed to get. In the book, if I remember correctly, the Beast Raban just like they find him dead.
He
And they're
dies
like,
off page.
yeah, he's just
Like,
like, oh yeah, we found him dead. Anyways, moving on. We threw him in the trash pile over there. Like that
mhm.
it's a better closure for both characters, I think. My big bummer in this movie is I really wanted to see Count Fenring.
Hmm.
I like that character. I like seeing somebody, especially with Thufir getting cut out of the movie. It would have been nice to have somebody other than the Emperor at the very end giving the Baron Harkonnen the business, because he doesn't.
Hmm.
He's putting the squeeze on the Beast Raban for most of the movie, and then just kind of turning Feyd-Rautha loose on the planet. But we don't have that in the book. The Baron Harkonnen is a coward at his core, and there's no better part that shows that than him getting hassled by like the Emperor's assassin and like the Emperor's best friend, saying like,
Yeah.
you're asking too many questions, and the questions you're asking are super dumb because you're not thinking about it. The Emperor has taken notice, and having him shaking in his boots, like that would have been, I think, really great, but understandably kind of excised from the film.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We didn't talk about Anna Taylor-Joy's little scene either.
yeah, I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy
It's
is,
a it's a vi- it's a
yeah,
vision of the future. She's in it for like literally 4 seconds
but
flat,
she's
and she's
great.
talking to him from the future.
Yeah, you just need Anya Taylor-Joy to look how she does, and you're just like, yeah, that's cool. That's a cool looking person.
In the nicest way possible. Beautiful, amazing, weird is how she looks.
Yeah,
It's
otherworldly
her
at times.
her eyes are too big. Her eyes are way too big for her face. It feels like, and
Right.
that's why it's one of those things where it's like I get that. What's it called when video games are the uncanny valley? I
Uncanny
get
Valley.
that
Yeah, right.
when I'm looking at her, where it's like, are
Right.
you real? Are you that battle angel
Right.
Alita that I keep hearing about? Is that who you are?
Are you just like one of the elves from Lord of the Rings? Because I could kind of
Uh
buy it.
huh.
But yeah, overall, I was really, really happy with it. I think a lot of the action stuff looks incredibly cool. I appreciate that this movie had enough quiet moments, kind of like the first one did.
Hmm.
I kind of like how they did the time skip and dropping that. I like them humanizing the Fremen, as we've talked about. I think there's some positive changes in the movie overall, and even if I think the true uh, victory of this movie is, even if you haven't read the books, even if you don't know anything about Dune, go into these two movies and just have a good time and just see a cool sci-fi movie that has some really neat stuff in it and is just has some cool sci-fi. And I think that's a victory in and of itself. And for those of us
Yeah.
that have read the book, it's got a lot of cool stuff in there too. So,
Um, I did not know this.
hmm.
Shaddam the Fourth is never mentioned in the movie.
Oh,
He's
do they
called the
only call
Emperor.
him the Emperor?
He's never
Interesting.
called Shaddam.
Huh.
And Princess Irulan is only ever called Princess. She's never named. She's only called Princess.
Interesting. Huh.
So you don't know their name unless you read the book.
Right. Interesting. Let's do ratings here real quick, because the movie's been out for long enough that there are some. On IMDb, it's 8.9 out of 10, 225,000 ratings. On Letterboxd, 4.5 out of 5 with 31,000 ratings. And on Rotten Tomatoes, 92% on the tomato meter, 95% audience score, which is about as high as I was expecting, at least here with the movie kind of getting rave reviews right out of the gate.
Hmm.
So that's not too surprising there. Yeah, I'm glad we got to do a Dune season finally. Now that
What?
the movie came
Where would
out,
you sit on this movie, ratings wise?
I think if I was to give it, I'm at the like 4.5 out of 5, 9.5 out of 10 thing.
Hmm.
I think it
I'm an
really
I'm an 8.5 and a 9. I'm wheeling between the two.
okay.
Like I can't figure out exactly where I sit.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it's an
It's still a
incredible movie.
stunning movie.
Yeah, and I it's been a while since I've kind of seen like a
I mean, this is
big
all new as well for you. Like every single
right.
part of this season has been all new for you.
Yeah, and I've appreciated that like we got to get both sides of it. Like we got to get the book, this truly classic foundational science fiction work. You know, as much as the Lord of the Rings is a foundational fantasy work, you know, we're reading one of the classics, one of the true greats. And watching the movies, it feels like it sort of felt like watching the first Matrix movie in the theaters. Where you're like, I'm watching something special. Like I'm watching a
Hmm.
potential kind of modern classic movie. And this isn't recency bias. It's just it's a very special movie that was made by a team that really cared about this movie and really has like every single actor like at the height of their acting prowess all in
Yeah.
the same 3 hour movie. It's incredible.
I mean, the,
Um,
the ironic thing for me is like I've seen Zendaya in a few things, mostly
mhm,
Spider-Man, if I'm honest, where she got so much crap for being an MJ of color. Like, just go
mhm.
away. Like, number one.
And The
But I
Great
thought she did,
Showman too.
yes, and The Greatest Showman, where she like nailed her performance in that too.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, so I'm expecting Zendaya to be pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how is Timothy Chalamet going to do? Because I never saw him in anything before these movies.
Right.
Same with Austin Butler. So like
Yep.
the previous movie was like, oh, Timothy Chalamet. Turns out you're very, very good. Hmm,
Right.
good to know. And
Yeah.
then in this one, seeing Austin Butler, it's like, oh, you're very good too.
Right.
Oh
Oh,
no.
you're for real. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
And again,
I
talking about taking a bit part character and making it 1,000% your own. Because Fade's important in the books, but he's a bit part important. He's not
yeah.
Paul important. And
Right.
he stands out of this cast like really well. That
Hmm.
again, we said it in Discord. We said it at the start, but of part two of part two. Um, his vocal performance is unreal. How
It's
good it is.
uncanny. Yeah. You can't undersell how odd and perfect that is. It's when we saw Looper, I feel like
Hmm.
that's what they were trying to go for with that performance of like, oh, you're a young version of that.
Yeah.
This is the performance you want to get out of that, where it's like, no, this is a carbon copy of that other guy. He's just another dude.
It it's been so we've done so many seasons. I forgot we did Looper.
Yep, we sure did. Yep,
Uh-huh.
man. Yeah, I'm super happy we got to do this season. Super happy we got to.
We're not doing the 84 movie as well, for those who
No,
are curious.
yeah, this is the
We
last
will not be doing
episode
that
of
this
this.
season.
Yeah,
We might end up doing it as a so bad they're legendary season at some point kind of
and
thing.
you know there with we talked about it a little bit. Uh, with the runaway success of both of these movies, there is a genuine possibility that there could be a Dune Messiah movie, which would lead us into another season of reading the book, watching the movie, and then maybe doing some supplemental miniseries
I
slash 85 movie stuff.
If you don't listen to the production meetings, you don't know this. That's a Patreon exclusive, by the way.
That's right.
Um, but I already have a Dune 2 in season a Dune season 2 in the spreadsheet.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that for those of you who might be coming out because we haven't mentioned it enough, yes, that is the sci-fi miniseries. Is
Yes.
specifically that season, which is Dune, Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune. So
Oh, okay.
that's
I didn't know it was all three.
three.
Wow.
Yes, the first one
Okay.
is Dune, the second one is Dune Messiah, and the third one is Children of Dune.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, I think that's the end of this season. Thank you very much, everyone, for kind of taking the Dune journey with us as we sort of behind the scenes figured out how we do a book and movie pairing season as well.
And it has been tough. I think
Yeah.
I think this season I think has worked out fine.
Yeah.
Because minor spoiler alert, we did the first book part like a year ago, I think.
That's months and months ago. Yeah.
Because we tried to schedule it so that it would come out around the same time as this movie would come out.
Right.
And then active strikes happened and everything else.
Solidarity. We stand with you.
Yes. Yes, we do. But I will say, I think, and audience, feel free to chime in or whatever here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works. I think we can do this. I think this
Yeah.
is definitely a format that I think has been successful in this.
Yeah.
Maybe we might need to talk off mic about potentially not calling it a season until we've actually finished it, kind of
I think
thing.
I think we've learned some stuff about mentioning which season we're in during recording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
maybe we do a classics of literature and we don't talk about it until we finished it, kind of thing.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, but
I haven't read or seen Moby Dick, is all I'm saying.
There you go. Yeah, we'll put that in the list. But always, as always, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this season as we tried something a little bit different. This will inform kind of future book seasons, book and movie pairing seasons. We've talked about it a little bit in the production meeting. If you haven't listened to the production meeting, you can get that exclusively over at patreon.com/E1M1.
The ones and numbers.
That is at the $5 tier or higher. That's per month, not per episode. And we, yeah, go ahead.
My apologies if you caught my phone notification through the microphone.
Uh-huh.
It was my watch telling me to get ready for bed.
Yes, yeah, we've been recording for a while here today. But in between most seasons, it's not a guarantee between seasons because sometimes a production meeting will cover multiple seasons. But between most seasons, we will talk about kind of the ethos behind the show, do some planning, remove some seasons we were talking about, add a bunch of stuff. Sometimes we spend an episode just coming up with season ideas and trying to come up with them. So it really is, more so than anything else, it's less of a produced episode and much more of a fly on the wall sort of thing. So I think they turn out really well every time. And I would recommend, if you like this show, you kind of want to see how the sausage is made, I really recommend listening to those episodes. I think they're really interesting, and I hope everybody does as well. So you can get that over at patreon.com/E1M1.
Ones and numbers.
Again, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this season we've been working for on a couple of months. I hope everybody really enjoyed it. I think I did. I think Moon did. And I hope that I hope that you will join us all for the very next season. Bye.
Bye.